Okay, right, we're going. Right, good morning all. We are live. Here we go. Well, the 22nd of April 2026. Prime Minister's question time. Keir Starmer's under pressure at the moment due to the Peter Mandelson scandal. We're going to see what occurs here. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe. Much appreciated everyone who's joined the channel over the last week or so. Much appreciated. Good to have you along. You all along, even. Just one thing to hit on as well. If anyone wants to see the Oliver Robbins inquiry, that's on the video section. That was out last night. If you want to go and watch that. Also, noticing social media, there's a lot of posts going on about the United Kingdom march in central London on May the 16th, which I'll be attending, and I hope we will be too. It is all false that it is being cancelled. It has not been cancelled. It's still going ahead. It's just fake news. It's all a load of, yeah, okay. So it came up on my feed the other day and I'm like, hold on, looked into it. It's fake, okay. It is fake. So ignore that totally. So the May the 16th march is going ahead, United Kingdom in London. It has not been cancelled. It's someone's out there just trying to, cause problems. It is still going ahead. And I hope to see you all there. I'll be covering it from live as much as I can. But yeah, let's see what happens today with this one. Hopefully we get some people joining soon. A lot of people probably watching on their tellies. That's probably why I can't see everyone. Let me just check. Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, we got a lot of people in. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And hope everyone's well. Okay. Well, yeah, we got a lot of people. Don't forget to hit that like button, please. Right. We're just waiting for them to start now. Okay. And like I said, the United Kingdom march is still going ahead. It has not been cancelled. So ignore these fake social media posts, which have been photoshopped and doctored. It is still going ahead. Okay. If you can't get out to it, it's no problem. I will be there live streaming as much as I can. Let me just get this stream set up as well. Damn it. Yeah, I'll be there streaming it as much as I can for you. And if there is problems with the stream at the time, I will always record it and get bits uploaded straight away as soon as possible. That will be literally in as it happens in real time, okay? So depending on how fast I can get stuff uploaded, of course, and edited. I can get it edited pretty quickly, but it's just getting it uploaded can be a bit of a pain. Right. They should be starting any minute. We've got the screen up. We're going to see. Let me know in the chat what your feelings are. Whether Keir Starmer is going to be forced to resign. Bear told me this morning, the dog, if you don't know, He said to me on the quiet, he said, Starmer's going to resign by the end of the week. Okay? That is from him. He knows a lot, he does, that dog. Anyway, let's put you over. And we'll just wait for them to start. Just before they start as well, please share this out on your social media platforms. We're trying to get as many people watching this. I'm independent. I do this on my own. I've been doing it for years. Well, filming protests, etc. So a bit of support and help would go a long way. Let's try and get the viewers away from watching these mainstream media platforms, yeah? Think about independent journalists out there. And thank you.
Order. The clerk will now proceed to read the title of the private bill set down for today.
Royal Albert Hall Bill, Lords, report stage.
Report stage what day?
Monday the 27th of April, Mr Speaker.
Monday the 27th of April. Motion relating to the City of London Markets Bill. The Chairman of Ways and Means. Chair.
I beg to move, Mr Speaker.
The question is on the order paper is made. The opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to the motion relating to the Royal Albert Hall Bill. Chairman of Ways.
Objection taken.
Objection taken. Motion will be taken what day?
Monday the 27th of April, Mr Speaker.
Monday the 27th of April. Right. Thank you, Chair of Ways and Means. We now come to questions. Secretary of State for Wales, Peter Swallow.
Question 1, please, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker. And if I may, can I send congratulations to Cardiff City on their promotion at the weekend. The Government is putting Wales at the heart of our clean energy mission. Just this month, Great British Energy Nuclear signed a contract with Rolls-Royce to deliver the UK's first SMRs at Wilver, creating 3,000 jobs in North Wales and thousands more across the supply chain. That's on top of the £64 million government investment to transform the port of Port Talbot into the first floating offshore wind port in the Celtic Sea.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The war in Iran has put into stark contrast the vital importance of clean energy for the UK. From Bracknell to Bangor, we've all seen the effects on our bills. Can the Secretary of State update the House on the role that clean energy is playing in Wales and its importance for the future of Wales?
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question? He's absolutely right, because achieving energy independence is crucial for Wales, and we will be better off because of it, with more jobs created and bringing bills down. It's why we've made the investments in Port Talbot and at Wilver that I mentioned. The Greens oppose Wilver and would scrap the 3,000 jobs it will bring. Plaid are silent on it because they can't agree amongst themselves whether they support it. Labour is the only party working to achieve energy independence, create thousands of jobs and bring down bills.
Cheeston.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Will the Minister agree that while we commend Wales for its impressive clean energy oversupply, we should focus on the lessons it offers for upgrading infrastructure across Wales and offers for upgrading infrastructure across Wales and the rest of the United Kingdom?
Clearly, we need to continue our drive to invest more in energy infrastructure. We will only deliver that energy independence through the building of infrastructure. That's why we've made the announcements on grid, on infrastructure and on planning over the last few weeks.
David Chadwick, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since coming to power, time and time again, this government has failed to stand up for Welsh interests. And nowhere has that been more obvious than in mid-Wales, where Oliver Milliken and his company Bute Energy would like to build a series of energy parks that encircle our military training bases, impede our farmers' access to their land, and do great damage to our local tourist industry. So will she take this opportunity to tell Oliver and Bute Energy that they are not welcome in Wales because we are fed up of being exploited?
The simple fact is that those who oppose the building of renewable energy infrastructure risk blocking investment and job creation, whilst at the same time making their own constituents' bills more expensive. Upgrading and expanding the electricity network isn't optional, it's a national imperative and we cannot afford to delay. He's asked me a question, he might want to listen to the answer.
Andrew Rosner.
Question 2, Mr. Speaker.
We are delivering the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, investing £270 billion over this Parliament. Our £50 million defence growth deal in Wales puts us front and centre to lead the way in 21st century autonomous defence technology, which, alongside supporting our thriving defence sector, will deliver thousands of skilled, well-paid jobs and help keep our country safe.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister will be aware of the excellent potential of the defence sector in Wales. She will also be aware, however, that the United Kingdom under this government is woefully unprepared and uniquely vulnerable to global and geopolitical threats. So, what steps is she taking to ensure that her department works with the Ministry of Defence in prioritising British firms in Wales over foreign suppliers so that we strengthen British capabilities and skilled Welsh jobs rather than offshoring our security and our jobs to strategic competitors and, even worse, our enemies?
To be quite frank with you, Mr. Speaker, the hypocrisy is astounding. It is incredulous.
Obviously, we can't use hypocrisy against the honourable member. He would never dream of it. Come on,
It is incredulous that the member opposite questions this government's commitment when the former leader of Reform in Wales, Nathan Gill, is serving 10 years in prison for accepting Russian bribes. I am sure that Gill will be cheering on his close friends in Reform from the comfort of his prison cell as we approach the Senedd elections. Meanwhile, this Labour government is getting on to continue to act in the national interest.
Ruth Jones, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Welsh Affairs Select Committee has a great interest in the future of the defence manufacturing industry in Wales because the defence sector is such a major driver in Wales's manufacturing economy and provides many well-paid jobs, including General Dynamics in Oakdale in my constituency. The sector is also central to maintaining the UK's national security. So can the Minister provide an indication of how the government plans to help grow this vital sector in Wales?
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question and also the important work that she and her committee do. Our Wales Defence Growth Deal will drive innovation and it will also create thousands of high-skilled jobs right across Wales. So, whilst the parties opposite hollow out and dismantle our armed forces for 14 years, or they play with Putin, or they plot to leave NATO, it is this government that is taking action, investing in defence, ensuring that Wales is leading the way on future defence technology.
Can I welcome you into the dispatch box, Shadow Minister John Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether to stand at the dispatch box or on it. Mr Speaker, for want of a horseshoe nail, the kingdom was lost. The defence of our country today rests on modern nail makers, the SMEs supplying small but vital parts for frigates, fighter jets and for our fighting men and women. The endless delay to this Labour government's defence investment plan means companies have no certainty about orders. Jobs, good jobs, from Pembrokeshire to Prestatyn, hang in the balance. What pressure is the Secretary of State bringing to bear on Cabinet colleagues in MOD and Treasury to keep Welsh jobs and indeed this United Kingdom from being lost?
Again, Mr Speaker, just the cheek of the party opposite. 14 years in power, and what did they do but hollow out our armed forces and defences, failing to develop any proper plan for our defence industry? It is this government that is taking action, delivering the biggest sustained increase in spending since the Cold War. We are working at pace to finalise a defence investment plan, ensuring it's robust, ensuring it supports the development of both current and future capabilities. We, as opposed to the party opposite, in 14 years are investing in our defence.
Steve Witherden.
Number 3, please, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. With your permission, I will answer questions 3, 7, 12 and 13 together. We know that the conflict in the Middle East is placing pressure on the cost of living and household bills, including those in rural communities. And that's why this government is providing £3.8 million to the Welsh Government to support households in Wales who use heating oil.
Steve Witherden.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This month, the UK Labour Government formally lifted the two-child limit, benefiting nearly 70,000 children in Wales and 2,270 children in my constituency, Montgomeryshire and Glyndŵr. I'm enormously proud that Labour is lifting hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty, while the other parties in Wales promise spending cuts and tax rises on working families. Would the Secretary of State update the House on what this policy means for the future of Wales?
My honourable friend is proud, and I am too, of the steps that both our UK and Welsh Labour governments have and are taking to support children and families with the cost of living. Scrapping the two-child limit, providing 50 million free school meals since 2022, creating 100,000 apprenticeships and devolving £20 million to the Welsh Government to help more young people into work. Contrast Labour's record with Plaid's admission that they'll cut child poverty budgets and they plan to hike taxes on working families. Labour is the only party on the side of Welsh families.
Ed Dugan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In just 2 weeks' time, the people of Wales will have an opportunity to elect a government that genuinely cares about child poverty in Wales, Plaid Cymru. In Scotland, the Scottish Government's child payment has helped 407,000 children be protected from UK poverty, and Plaid Cymru will do the same thing if they prevail on the 7th of May. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that Labour's fag-end administration in Wales has come to an end? Plaid Cymru's time has come, and not a moment too soon for the people of Wales.
I don't think he can have been listening when I mentioned in my answer to my honourable friend earlier about the fact that Plaid have admitted that they will cut the budget on child poverty. The Institute for Fiscal Studies have been clear that Plaid would have to make spending cuts or raise taxes to pay for their unfunded manifesto pledges. And at some point before the 7th of May, their leader's going to have to come clean on what they're going to do.
Caroline Harris.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. With almost 170,000 workers in Wales benefiting from Labour's successive increases to the national minimum and living wages, families across the country, including many of my constituents, will now be better off. Despite resistance from opposition parties, this government has shown its commitment to tackling the cost of living crisis and supporting working people. So could the Secretary of State update the House on how these changes and the Employment Rights Act will benefit people in my constituency and across Wales?
I thank my honourable friend for her question. We promised we would be a government for working people, and that's exactly what we've done. Our industrial strategy set to support tens of thousands of jobs, new jobs across Wales, more employment support for people to help them to get into work, increases to the national minimum and living wages, and strengthening rights and protections at work, making work pay more secure and fair through our Employment Rights Act. New jobs created, better jobs, higher wages, all because of this Labour government.
Bill Jones.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Free school meals for children, our universal credit uplift and up to £575 more on the state pension, thanks to protecting the triple lock, are all great examples of how Labour governments at both ends of the M4 are helping with the cost of living. But can the Secretary of State update the House on the steps that the government is taking to ensure that in the future nobody gets trapped in a cycle of poverty, whether in my constituency of Merthyr Tydfil and Aberdare or indeed across the country?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. Now, whether it's children, young families or pensioners, young people, families or pensioners, this Labour government is determined to tackle the cost of living both for his constituents and for all our constituents. We inherited a broken welfare system from the Conservatives that has failed people and trapped them in a cycle of poverty, and we will not allow that to continue. So that's why we're helping people into work with new employment programmes, increasing universal credit for those who need support, 700,000 pensioners being helped with a state pension rise, as he mentioned. We are absolutely laser-focused on tackling the cost of living.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for that? Labour has done much for addressing the issue of child poverty, for example, but the issue of heating oil and fuel and red diesel, it's the same in Wales as it is in Northern Ireland and indeed across this great United Kingdom. The price of red diesel for farmers in the rural locations, the price of red diesel for the fishing sector, and the price of diesel for HGV lorries. So what's the Minister doing to help those three sectors to ensure that the economy can survive? If they do that in Wales, then they'll have to do it in Northern Ireland as well.
I thank my honourable friend for acknowledging the work that this government has done on the cost of living. He mentions red diesel. That continues to benefit from an 80% tax discount, which is saving farmers almost £300 million a year. We've already brought in a 5p fuel duty cut from this month until September. We've raised industry concerns about red diesel prices, and I know that my colleague has also met with farming unions about red diesel. We have looked at price transparency with the Competitions and Market Authority, and we are keeping everything under careful review.
Shadow Secretary of State, Mims Davis.
Well, let's have some reality, because it's Labour's cost of living crisis which is hitting families across Wales. It's vital both governments do all it takes to ease these pressures, yet the Welsh Labour government still chooses to spend over £100 million on more politicians, tens of millions on a default 20-mile-per-hour speed limit, and vanity embassies abroad, and millions on tree planting in Uganda. Mr Speaker, these are not the priorities of struggling families. Will the Secretary of State finally condemn the wasteful spending of taxpayers' money and admit these schemes do not address the cost of living crisis in Wales?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm really surprised that the honourable member has raised the issue of the expansion of the Senedd, because the accepted rationale of those who support the expansion is because it was necessary to improve scrutiny of the Welsh Government. What a terrible indictment of the inadequate performance of her party, whose job it has been, as the opposition in the Senedd for the last 27 years, to carry out that scrutiny.
Liz Savile-Roberts.
Iawn, Lefarydd. Families in Wales under Labour are struggling. Inflation on bills, wages flatlining, and childcare costs are higher there than anywhere else in the UK. Plaid Cymru's universal childcare offer would be a game changer. At full rollout, this universal offer will be worth more than £30,000 per child, and it has been independently assessed as both affordable and deliverable. Does she recognise how Labour's chronic lack of ambition are keeping families in Wales in poverty?
Plaid's manifesto, and specifically their childcare policy that she refers to, exposes the fact that they are not on the side of working people in Wales. They're not serious about tackling the cost of living. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has been clear that Plaid would have to make spending cuts or raise taxes to pay for their unfunded manifesto pledges. And that's at a time when families are dealing with the cost of living. They'll be hiking taxes and slashing spending on child poverty, which will make families worse off. Families in Wales deserve better than a manifesto of economic fiction.
The Secretary of State's tight-lipped quibbling is just an excuse, a shadow of an apology for what her party has failed to do for being in power for the last 27 years. And it's no surprise to anybody that voters are ready for a change. Last night's YouGov poll shows that Plaid Cymru and Reform UK are neck and neck in Wales, with Labour trailing far behind. Will she accept that a vote for Labour on May the 7th risks handing power to Reform UK, who will wreck our NHS, and recognise that only Plaid Cymru can stop this?
The answer to that question is no.
Borough Clerk.
Question 4, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Creating high-quality jobs across Wales is a priority for this government. Wales is now punching above its weight in attracting investment, with 65 new foreign direct investment projects creating nearly 2,500 jobs in 2024 to 2025. That includes over 500 jobs in North Wales from Erin Holdings, Knauf Insulation and Kellogg's, alongside hundreds more in South Wales, driven by Vichy's £250 million semiconductor cluster investment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the issues which sets Labour apart from the parties opposite is the sheer number of jobs, new jobs we are creating in priority areas like tech, like defence and our green industries. In constituencies like mine in Enfield North, across Wales and the rest of the UK. So can the Secretary of State update to House on the new jobs being created in Wales and the opportunities this will provide for every family?
I thank my honourable friend for recognising the scale of opportunities and new jobs that this government is creating in Wales and across the UK. So whether it's 3,000 jobs in new nuclear, 5,000 jobs in floating offshore wind, 8,000 jobs in our 2 AI growth zones, 12,000 jobs in our historic £14 billion commitment for Welsh Rail, and 25,000 jobs in our free ports and investment zones, we are delivering generational change for people in Wales.
Rebecca Smith.
Mr. Speaker, in Wales, the South West and across the UK, nearly 1 million young people are not in education, employment or training. Labour's jobs tax, failed welfare reforms and damaging energy policies will worsen this crisis. Does the Minister recognise that when the Labour government's first response to any crisis is to tax business, they stop hiring, and it is young people in Wales who suffer most?
The honourable lady might like to know that unemployment in Wales is lower than the UK average and has fallen from this time last year. Youth unemployment is also lower than the UK average, and it shows that our plan to boost the Welsh economy is working. We're creating jobs, helping people into jobs right across Wales.
Show Secretary of State Mims Davies.
The bedrock of our country's defence rests on our crucial membership of NATO. The defence industry in Wales employs more than 15,000 people, well-paid and important roles. Yet the separatists Plaid, along with the Greens, oppose full membership of this deterrent, whilst Reform bizarrely claim all sorts of things, like blaming NATO for provoking war in Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, will the Secretary of State stand up for NATO, more Welsh defence jobs, and for the thousands in Welsh communities that rely on growing employment in this crucial sector?
That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. I refer the honourable lady to the answers given on the questions relating to defence earlier in this session.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 5, please.
The Prime Minister has announced a generational funding commitment to Welsh Rail and a pipeline of projects valued at £14 billion. This long-term plan will transform connectivity across Wales, and we will deliver at pace, building on the strong start of at least £445 million of investment secured at the spending review.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that answer. The UK Labour government's generational commitment to a £14 billion pipeline of rail projects in every part of Wales is a clear demonstration of what can be achieved when two Labour governments are working together. And the investment from the spending review has resulted in upgrades at Cardiff West Junction, which are set to double City Line services, benefiting stations in my constituency. But incredibly, Clyde have promised to tear up this much-needed plan and start again. So would the Minister update the House and myself on the impact Labour's rail investment for Wales will have for my constituents and for the people of Wales?
Can I thank my honourable friend for pointing this out? The UK and Welsh Labour government's £14 billion plan for rail unlocks and delivers the transport network that Wales needs and deserves, bringing 12,000 jobs, boosting our economy and making journeys faster and more frequent. And there is a plan of 43 projects for every corner of Wales, including burn stations in the South East, electrification to Holyhead, the Swansea Metro, the Marches Line. While parties opposite want to put these plans on hold, the reality is our two Labour governments are working together to deliver transformational change for the people of Wales.
And Davies.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Llefarydd. Labour Senedd manifesto makes no mention of the billions of HS2 funding owed to Wales. Welsh Labour have given up on the argument, as the Secretary of State did after she took office. HS2 no longer exists, were her words. Can the Minister please explain why Wales isn't having fair funding for rail?
I don't know if the member opposite heard my answer just now, talking about £14 billion of commitment across Wales, which the party opposite, and I'm sure she doesn't agree with her party's plan to rip up this £14 billion commitment to rails, robbing Wales and our communities of a generation of rail investment, connecting communities and delivering jobs right across Wales.
Catherine Vokes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question 6.
Where are we?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This government is creating tens of thousands of high-quality jobs across Wales, from offshore wind in the Celtic Sea, nuclear power at Wilver, AI growth zones, free ports, investment zones, rail enhancements, a defence growth deal and the steel strategy. Our vision for economic growth in Wales is unashamedly ambitious and is already delivering results.
Folks.
I was pleased to see the Secretary of State and the First Minister launch the Local Growth Fund in Wales this week, and to boost jobs and investment in local economies. This is on top of the local Welsh placemaking grant funding and the UK Government's Pride in Place funding, which gives £1.5 million to my constituency, which will improve 6 Monmouthshire towns. Will the Secretary of State update the House on how our two Labour governments are working together to invest in our Welsh communities?
My honourable friend, Mr Speaker, is right. My honourable friend is right that this Labour government's over £500 million local growth fund will fuel economic growth in every corner of Wales. It will support people to start and to grow their businesses. It will help people to secure new skills and jobs. It will revitalise Welsh communities. And it's a great example of what can be achieved with two Labour governments working together.
One way to support growth in Wales and indeed in Shropshire is to support the Wrexham, Shropshire and Midland Railway Company open access application to the Office and Rail and Road. So would the Secretary of State make a commitment today, similar to that of the Transport Secretary, that the government will not get in the way of this application and allow growth in both Shropshire and in Wales and in the border market towns?
I have to apologise to the honourable member. I didn't hear the first part of his question, but I'm very happy to chat with him afterwards, or if he writes me, and I'll give him a full answer.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, may I extend a warm welcome to the Speaker of the Latvian Parliament and her delegation who are with us in the gallery today. We now come to questions to the Prime Minister. Mike Wood.
Question 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Queen Elizabeth II devoted her life to public service. As we mark the 100th anniversary of her birth, I'm delighted her extraordinary reign will be marked by a permanent memorial. Mr. Speaker, in recent days, we've seen a series of despicable anti-Semitic arson attacks. With additional funding to deploy specialist officers, a fundamental reset of how we counter extremism, an action to tackle the poison of anti-Semitism in our schools, our colleges and the NHS. We will do everything in our power to keep British Jews safe. And I'm sure the whole House will join me in standing with our Jewish community. There is no place in British life for anti-Semitism. Mr. Speaker, today my thoughts are also with the family of Stephen Lawrence, murdered in a racist attack 33 years ago today. We honour his legacy in the fight against racism and providing opportunity for every young person. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with Minister Colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Can the Prime Minister deny that Downing Street considered appointing Matthew Doyle to a diplomatic position?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle worked for many years in public service, for me as Prime Minister and other ministers. When people leave roles in any organisation, there are often conversations about other roles they want to apply for, but nothing came of this.
Today marks the murder, the racist murder of my friend's brother, Stephen Lawrence. Tomorrow is St George's Day. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that now, more than ever, we need to tell the story, the positive story of Englishness, founded in who we are and not of who the far right would like us to be?
Can I thank him for raising this? Of course, it was 33 years ago today that awful murder took place. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to have worked alongside Baroness Lawrence for many years now. She is an incredibly courageous and inspiring campaigner, notwithstanding all of the injustices that have been thrown to her in the last 33 years. We do celebrate St George's Day, we fly our flag, we celebrate this country's values of service, generosity and respect. They, Mr. Speaker, are English values, which is why I love this country so much. There are those that seek to divide us, who tell us people are not welcome and try to rip our communities apart. We will never let them, Mr. Speaker. We stand together, united, and against any challenges that we may face.
Timmy Beardnott, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister stand by his statement at the dispatch box on the 10th of September last year that full due process was followed in the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to Washington?
Yes, I do. Mr. Speaker, let me make clear at the outset that the appointment itself was a mistake. It was my mistake. I've apologised to the victims for it, and I do so again. What I set out to the House on Monday is that Foreign Office officials granted security clearance to Mandelson against the recommendation of UK security vetting. Yesterday, Sir Ollie Robbins was asked if he shared that decision with me, Number 10, or any other ministers. He gave a clear answer, no. Mr. Speaker, that puts to bed all the allegations levelled at me by those opposite in relation to dishonesty. Last week they were all saying that it must have been shared with me. Sir Ollie was very clear yesterday it was not. I believe not sharing it was a serious error of judgment. That information should have been shared with me and other ministers. And if it had been, Mandelson would not have been committed to post.
Mr. Speaker, it does not put to bed anything. On the 11th of November 2024, long before any vetting had happened, the Prime Minister received advice from Simon Case, the then Cabinet Secretary. The advice said the appointment would require, and I quote, the necessary security clearances before confirming the Prime Minister's choice. This advice was ignored. So how can the Prime Minister still believe that confirming Mandelson before the security clearances was following full due process?
Mr. Speaker, this was looked into by Sir Chris Wormold. I asked him to review the appointment process, including the vetting. He confirmed, Mr. Speaker, his words, appropriate processes were followed. She's put great weight on the order of events. I remind her what Sir Chris said last November in evidence to the House. He said this, and I quote, when we are making appointments from outside the civil service, the normal thing is for security clearance to happen after appointment, but before the person signs a contract and takes up post. That is what happened in this case. Sir Ollie Robbins himself, Mr. Speaker, also gave evidence, and he said, and I quote, as is normally the case with external appointments in his department, the appointment was made subject to obtaining security clearance. Mr. Speaker, on top of that, Sir Ollie Robbins has made clear that the fact that developed vetting was after announcement made, in his words, no material difference to the conclusion that was reached. And, Mr. Speaker, I add this, that what Sir Ollie Robbins wrote to the committee yesterday was this, and I quote, when the Prime Minister informed the House that the proper process had been followed in respect of national security vetting, he was correct.
It's very interesting that he mentions Chris Wormold. He is relying on advice given to him after Mandelson was sacked by a Cabinet Secretary the Prime Minister then sacked. That is not relevant. I'm talking about the advice he was given before the appointment. He keeps mentioning Sir Ollie Robbins. Sir Ollie Robbins told us that the Prime Minister even sought clearance from His Majesty the King before the vetting. He'd already got agreement from the US administration. The chair of the Select Committee said that. Mandelson was a done deal. Yesterday, Sir Ollie Robbins said that the focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. He said the Prime Minister's team showed a dismissive attitude to vetting, and they even argued Peter Mandelson didn't need any vetting at all. This clearly wasn't proper process. Why was due process not followed?
Mr. Speaker, let me deal with this directly, particularly this question of pressure in relation to the decision to appoint and to put into post Peter Mandelson. So Ollie Robbins could not have been clearer in his evidence yesterday. He said this, I didn't feel under pressure personally in terms of my judgments. His words. Mr. Speaker, he went on to say, I have complete confidence that recommendations to me and the discussions we had and the decision we made were rigorously independent of any pressure. Mr. Speaker, on top of that, he was asked if any conversations led him to believe that Mandelson needed to take up the role regardless of vetting outcome. He said, I can say with certainty it was never put to me in that way. No pressure existed whatsoever in relation to this case. What is unacceptable is that the recommendation of UK SV was not given to me before Mandelson took up his post.
Mr. Speaker, we all heard what Sir Ollie Robbins said yesterday. The fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister spent a lot of time telling us just how furious he was to learn that Mandelson failed the vetting, the same Prime Minister who was trying to get into Washington without any vetting at all. It's just unbelievable. The reason the Cabinet Secretary advised the Prime Minister to carry out full vetting before the appointment, this is common sense, Mr. Speaker, carry out full vetting before the appointment, was to protect our national security. The due diligence document said Mandelson remained on the board of the Kremlin-linked defence company Sistema long after Putin's first invasion of Ukraine in 2014. The Prime Minister told us on Monday that he'd read that due diligence report. Why did the Prime Minister want to make a man with links to the Kremlin our ambassador in Washington?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me deal with the first allegation she put in that question. It was always the case that would be developed vetting in this case. That was the understood process. That was carried out. It was reviewed by Sir Chris Wormold, and he said it was the appropriate process. Sir Ollie was absolutely clear that nobody put pressure on him to make this appointment, either, whatever the sequence, or developed a vetting. In relation to what was in the due process, any issues of national security are dealt with in the developed vetting process. I knew that. Peter Mandelson received clearance through that process. The problem was, as I said to the House, I was unaware that UKSV recommended against clearance. That is information that should have been brought to my attention. Mr. Speaker, they recommended with red flags that there shouldn't be clearance, and it was high concern. That information should have been made available to me at the time and subsequently. The fact that it wasn't was a very serious error of judgment.
I don't know what planet the Prime Minister is on, Mr. Speaker. Appointing someone with known links to the Kremlin is not full due process. If anybody had brought that sort of name to me when I was a Secretary of State, I would have said, no way. The Prime Minister thought someone with Kremlin links was still probably OK. Let's do some vetting. Why does this matter? He keeps leaning on Sir Ollie Robbins, a man he sacked. He keeps leaning on him. Sir Ollie Robbins said yesterday that Peter Mandelson was given access to highly classified briefings even before he'd received clearance. That was a clear national security risk. How can the Prime Minister still maintain that full due process was followed?
Mr. Speaker, as a member of the House of Lords and Privy Councillor, and in accordance with guidance, documentation could have been provided to him and was provided to him. Strap material comes after developed vetting, but because he was a Privy Councillor, he could have access to other material before developed vetting.
This is a joke. He says a member of the House of Lords. Does he mean people like Matthew Doyle? Yeah. I'm amazed. Yes. I am amazed at the level of chuntering from Labour MPs. He promised them probity. What he's given them is cronyism and an old boys' club where Matthew Doyle is being proposed as an ambassador. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, we all heard Sir Ollie Robbins' testimony yesterday. The head of the Foreign Office was sacked for the Prime Minister's own failings. His backbenchers know that is not fair. Even his most loyal cabinet members won't defend it. The Prime Minister did not follow the process the Cabinet Secretary set out in November 2024. He knows he did not follow due process, yet he told the House he had. Mr. Speaker, I cannot accuse the Prime Minister of deliberately misleading the House, but everyone can see what has happened here. This was not due process. Everyone knows the price of misleading the House. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility and go?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. Before Mandelson took up his post, UKSV recommended with red flags that clearance should be denied, and there was high concern that that was not brought to my attention or the attention of the Foreign Secretary at the time or subsequently is a very serious error of judgment, and anyone in my position would have lost confidence in the former Permanent Secretary. But, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition claimed on Friday that Mandelson could not have been cleared against security advice. She was wrong about that. She said that ministers must have been told. She was wrong about that. She claimed there was deliberate dishonesty. She was wrong about that. Wrong, wrong, wrong. She rushed to judgment as she always did, just like the Iran war. Mr. Speaker, I was elected by the British people because they let the country down for 14 long years. Whatever she says, whatever noise they make, nothing is going to distract me from delivering for our country.
In contrast to the preoccupations of the Leader of the Opposition, my constituents are more concerned with the NHS and waiting lists. Thanks to this government, across England, waiting lists are coming down. In my part of the country, waiting lists have fallen by 13,000 in the past year alone. After years of Tory failure, we're getting the NHS back on its feet. Can the Prime Minister share with me what further plans we've got to get waiting lists down even more and to make sure that we've once again got a health service to be proud of?
Well, the party opposite should hang their heads in shame at the state they left our NHS in. And I'm proud that this Labour government is fixing our NHS across the country. Waiting lists, Mr. Speaker, the lowest for 3 years. Best A&E waiting times for 5 years. Fastest ambulance response times for half a decade. Cancer patients getting diagnosed in the shortest time on record. Lots done, more to do. That's why we're delivering neighbourhood health centres in every community to speed up care. We did that because we invested. What did they do? They broke the NHS and then they opposed the investment that we put in.
David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself and my party with the comments of the Prime Minister on our wonderful late Queen? And can I also agree with him on the need to confront anti-Semitism wherever it is in our society, and also remembering Stephen Lawrence and his family? Mr. Speaker, I'm sure many of us in this House were shocked by the new revelations from Ollie Robbins yesterday. He said Number 10 told him to find a plum job for Matthew Doyle, another Labour crony friends with a convicted sex offender. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was asked on Monday whether Number 10 had proposed any political appointments other than Mandelson. Perhaps the last few hours have jogged his memory. Will he confirm today, did he know his office was lobbying for a diplomatic job for Matthew Doyle? And were they doing it on his authority?
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, Matthew Doyle worked for many years in public service, for me as Prime Minister and other ministers. When people leave roles in any organisation, there are very often conversations about other roles they may want to apply for. In this case, nothing came of it.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, the House and the public watching will note the Prime Minister failed to answer my questions. But Mr. Speaker, the chaos in this government mustn't stop us from focusing on the cost of living crisis hitting our country. President Trump's idiotic war with Iran has already pushed up inflation in our country to 3.3%. And the Prime Minister knows there's far worse to come for the British people here on in. They need help now. So will the Prime Minister follow other countries and use the Treasury's extra revenues from higher fuel prices to cut rail and bus fares and slash prices at the pump by 12p a litre?
Mr. Speaker, everybody can see that the conflict is causing serious economic damage in this country and countries around the world. His claim of a windfall for the government are politically misleading and economically illiterate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, poor housing and temporary accommodation is having a devastating impact on families, their life chances, our schools and communities. Will he put the full weight of government behind ensuring that new developments in London are delivering for Londoners, not private investors and landlords, including on the Billingsgate Market site in my honourable friends Poplar and Limehouse constituencies?
I thank her for a question. We inherited a housing crisis in London, including record numbers of children living in temporary accommodation, because the party opposite failed to build the homes that we need. Mr. Speaker, we're building those homes, and I'm looking forward next week when Labour will deliver more security for tenants through our Renters' Rights Act. can I commend Hackney Council, her council, on getting on with building affordable homes. What a stark contrast to the Green Party, who've proposed 42,000 new homes across the capital and counting.
Mr Fenton Glenn, I'm glad you've found your feet because I could hear you shouting earlier, so we won't do it next week. Dr Ellie Chance.
Thank you. Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson in a desperate and doomed attempt to pander to Donald Trump, despite knowing about his friendship with the paedophile Epstein and his links to foreign states. The Prime Minister resisted and then took a dismissive and extraordinarily incurious attitude to vetting, compromising national security. And now he's thrown a civil servant under the bus to save his own skin. All this from a Prime Minister who pledged to restore trust and integrity in government, but who's repeatedly betrayed the trust of voters and let the country down. Does the Prime Minister not recognise that the best thing he can do to restore trust and integrity is to take true responsibility and resign?
Mr Speaker, let me just correct what she said. There was no dismissive attitude to develop vetting. I knew the post was subject to develop vetting. It was subject to develop vetting. What didn't happen was I was told of the UK SV recommendation. That was a serious error of judgment. Had I been told, the appointment wouldn't have gone ahead.
Martin Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my constituency of Glasgow North, local people in Somerston experiencing antisocial behaviour tell me that what makes the greatest difference is visible local police officers on the beat. However, since 2017, local police numbers in Glasgow have fallen by 9%, leaving 214 fewer local officers serving communities. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that visible local policing is essential to tackling antisocial behaviour and restoring confidence in our communities?
My honourable friend, Scotland deserves safer streets and more visible policing. In England and Wales, Mr Speaker, Labour has put 3,000 more neighbourhood police officers on our streets, delivering a named police officer for every neighbourhood. The SNP government has already had 2 decades and record funding to invest in public services. If they knew how to do it, they'd have done it by now, but they haven't.
Mr Speaker, we know that the Prime Minister has been playing fast and loose with the ministerial appointments in his chumocracy, so I want to ask him about the first one. Mr Speaker, their boos mean nothing to me, Mr Speaker. I've seen what makes them cheer. Yes. Jonathan Powell was appointed as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy to the British Indian Ocean Territories on the 6th of September, but throughout August, he held meetings with FCDO officials and was given access to classified information, including a meeting minute between the Prime Minister and the then Foreign Secretary sat next to him on the front bench today. So my question is very simple. When was Jonathan Powell appointed as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy to the British Indian Ocean Territory, and what security clearance did he have upon that appointment?
Let me say that Jonathan Powell is doing an excellent job for this government. He is respected across the world and playing a significant part in dealing with the huge challenges that we face.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Fertiliser prices are spiralling, and it's not just down to the war in the Middle East. It's also because of the choices of the previous Conservative government who let the UK's last ammonia plant based in Billingham close in 2023. They failed to see it as a nationally critical site that was critical to the UK's food production. And instead that we are now more reliant on volatile imports. If we don't tackle this head-on, higher fertiliser costs will mean higher food prices in the UK. Can I ask the Prime Minister what this government is doing to support British farmers, and does he agree with me that all options to bring down the cost of fertiliser should be on the table, including securing British homemade ammonia once again in the UK?
Well, clearly the Middle East conflict is placing real pressure on farmers. That's why it's very important that we de-escalate. Today the UK is hosting military planners as work continues with France and other countries to help get the Strait of Hormuz open once the ceasefire holds. We've instructed the CMA to look more closely at fertiliser and red diesel to ensure farmers are getting a fair deal. We're overhauling regulations around fertiliser to diversify supply. On her particular case, we've also taken the decision to open the carbon dioxide plant in Teesside to protect supplies, because we will always act to secure our economy.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Leaders can delegate responsibility, but we cannot delegate accountability. Lord Carrington learned this in the army, and he lived it as Foreign Secretary when Argentina invaded the Falklands. In 1982, he held himself accountable for the failures of Foreign Office officials and resigned even though he was later cleared of responsibility. Does the Right Honourable Member not believe in ministerial accountability?
Mr. Speaker, I've set out in terms what I wasn't told in relation to this process. It's clearly information that I should have been given. A UK SV recommendation with a double red flag should have been brought to my attention. It was a serious error of judgment that it wasn't. And anyone in my position would have taken exactly the decision that I took in relation to the Permanent Secretary.
Foxcroft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Housing is one of the biggest issues in my constituency. Lewisham Council is working hard to improve this, bringing its housing stock back in-house. Non-decent homes have fallen from 1 in 4 to 1 in 10. The repairs backlog was reduced by almost 2/3 and call waiting times have fallen from 70 minutes to 4. However, leaseholders and those with cladding issues still need support. So can the Prime Minister update the House on what this government is doing in these two very vital areas?
Mr. Speaker, we're tackling the injustice of leaseholds and fixing building safety, as she rightly highlights. And I can thank her for campaigning on this over many, many years. Mr. Speaker, we're capping ground rents at £250 to cut costs for almost 4 million leasehold properties. We're investing over £5 billion to remove dangerous cladding, including over £1 billion for social housing. In Lewisham and across the country, I'm determined that everyone should have a safe and secure home.
Lincoln John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Thursday, a man was arrested in Laleham, in my Spelthorne constituency. He'd been approaching children at the primary school, having been warned by the police not to do so. He was taken into police custody, and after further examination, he was detained under the Mental Health Act. Unbelievably, he was living in an unlicensed HMO supported by the Home Office, a stone's throw from the primary school. What I would like to know, Prime Minister, is who was responsible for the risk assessment that put him there. Was it the Home Office? Was it Spelthorne Borough Council? Who screwed up, and who can I hold accountable?
Can I thank him for his question? Obviously, this is a live police investigation, as he will appreciate, and I know the Asylum Minister is looking very closely at this case, and obviously I can provide him with any further information as that emerges. Can I reassure him that all accommodation must meet contractual standards, and the Home Office works with the police to manage all sites safely? Local authorities are consulted prior to any accommodation being procured and can object to any proposal. And where there's strong evidence the site is not suitable, it will not proceed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the main concerns North Durham residents raise with me is the vitality of local high streets. So I'm delighted that in the last year a series of new independent businesses has opened in Chesterley Street, Front Street. Willow's Bakehouse, Paper and Park Bookshop, Pretty Busy Blooms, Kira Sushi Restaurant, and just this weekend, the Black Rabbit Bar, which I'm looking forward to visiting. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating these new businesses and outline the measures he is taking to support further regeneration of our high streets?
I'm delighted to hear about the new businesses in his area. Our high street strategy, backed by £301 million, will set out further plans to rejuvenate high streets across the country. We are putting power into the hands of local communities through our Pride in Place scheme, Mr. Speaker, including £20 million for Stanley South in his constituency. That is only possible because his community has a hard-working Labour MP and a Labour government.
Colin Lockhart.
Mr. Speaker, some 6 months ago in this House I mentioned a little boy called Teddy Jackson. Sadly, Teddy will be forever 7 because he died last week from MLD. MLD is a horrendous condition that stole Teddy's ability to walk, talk and even smile. What makes this tragedy more profound is that here in the UK we have a treatment, we have a cure, but it's only effective if the condition is identified by the simple heel prick at birth and treated immediately, because when symptoms appear, it's too late. Just a few weeks ago, the UK Screening Committee recommended it remain excluded from the heel prick. So we have a treatment, we have a commissioned service in Manchester Royal Hospital, Children's Hospital, but yet children like Teddy are still dying prematurely. Prime Minister, despite all that's going on in the world, I know he is in politics to make a change. In Teddy's memory and in the memory of all those who have died prematurely, make the change and add MLD to the simple heel prick.
I do remember her raising Teddy's case very well, and I'm very saddened to hear of his passing, and I think my thoughts, and I'm sure of the whole House, are with his family and his loved ones. And I will do precisely as she asks. I'll make sure that we look at this again in light of the information she's now given to me in the course of this session.
Birthday boy Oliver Wright.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And happy St George's Day for tomorrow too. In Burnley, Padiham and Briarfield, we have a large number of ex-industrial derelict land sites crying out for regeneration and redevelopment. They're blighting communities and many are a fire risk. Our area in Britain needs housing, social, affordable, family, aspirational. We have the sites if he has the will. So will he back my campaign for a new regeneration and house building programme for Burnley, Padiham and Briarfield, tackling these derelict sites to get us building, growing and housing local people?
Yeah. Can I start by wishing him happy birthday? And I'll make sure ministers meet him to hear more detail about his particular proposal. We are committed to delivering 1.5 million homes this Parliament. We're prioritising development of brownfield sites, ensuring default answer to brownfield proposals is a yes. We will go further and faster now. Our Planning and Infrastructure Act is now law, despite being opposed by every party opposite, a coalition of blockers.
Tessama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister may be aware that in December, for the first time in over 3 decades, Defence Ministers met the families of those killed in the 1994 RAF Chinook crash on the Moluccan Tower. The Ministry of Defence promised, quote, ongoing dialogue with them. Is he also aware that despite receiving pages of new evidence presented at that meeting, which show the Chinook was not airworthy, the MOD chose not to keep its word and contacted instead the Press Association, saying no new evidence had been presented about the cause of the crash. The Prime Minister knows, because the families have written to him, as the MOD does too, the families are not seeking a public inquiry into the cause of the crash, but to know the reason why their loved ones were placed on board an aircraft, which, according to the MOD's own test pilots and engineers, was described as positively dangerous, unairworthy, and not to be relied on in any way whatsoever. And those are quotes. Will he agree to meet the families, to rebuild trust and to offer the promised dialogue the MOD clearly finds so difficult to achieve?
Can I thank her for raising this, and I will make sure this is looked at again in light of what she's raised just a moment ago, and I'll make sure that the families get the relevant meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Between 2010 and 2024, the number of children living in poverty increased by 700,000, with Tower Hamlets having one of the highest rates in the country. This Labour government's child poverty strategy will lift over 500,000 children out of poverty. But given the economic pressures caused by external shocks and its impact on the cost of living, there's a long way to go. Does the Prime Minister agree that the government should also look at setting a clear target to end child poverty for good?
Can I start by thanking her for a long record campaigning against child poverty? Child poverty stifles opportunity. It makes it harder for kids to get on in life. And we, this government, will not stand by. This is a moral mission for this government. We will make sure that no child or family is left behind through lifting the two-child cap, expanding free school meals, free breakfast clubs, extending free childcare. More than 6,000 children in her constituency alone will benefit from the action that we're taking. And what would tourism reform do? They would plunge those children straight back into poverty. That is a disgrace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, vigils are being held across Westminster for the 22 women who are diagnosed with lobular breast cancer every day. And, Mr. Speaker, I think we're privileged to say that some of those extraordinarily brave women are in the gallery this afternoon. Yeah. When I raised this issue with the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, she promised to take action and not just commit words. So would the Prime Minister today commit to the Lobular Moonshot Project's plan to fund lobular breast cancer?
Yeah. Can I thank him for drawing the House's attention to the vigils and the campaign, and can I acknowledge those in the gallery who are here today, and I will make sure that this is looked at to see what further we can do and that any relevant meetings are set up.
Rachel Buskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1777, Bootham Park Hospital was given in trust to the people of York. Since it closed in 2015, NHS Property Services has squandered £5.5 million, almost its sale price, keeping the building empty and threatening to sell it for a luxury complex our city does not want. This much sought-after community space for charities and services would significantly benefit York residents. So will the Prime Minister now release this site so public land can be used for public good and we get Bootham back?
Well, I know that this site is of huge significance to the people of York, and I understand the site is under offer. Ministers are happy to work with the Council and my honourable friend to find the right deal for the site, taking into account the points she's made.
Sarah Poachin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every day that the Prime Minister fails to act or even acknowledge Pakistani grooming gangs that rape and torture vulnerable white girls, more victims continue to suffer. Whilst he spends his energy forcing friends of paedophiles into top jobs, why not use that energy to stop this national disgrace?
Mr. Speaker, I spent many years prosecuting paedophiles who are now in prison, so I really don't need lectures from Reform about this.
Final question, Sonia Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2022, my constituent, Masi Sibanda, dropped her 14-year-old son, Noah, off to nursery like any other day. Tragically, this will be the last time Masi would see her son alive. A staff member at Fairy Tale Nursery tried to get him to sleep. When Noah resisted, she covered his face with a thick blanket and used her leg to pin him down. The pressure applied to his tiny body was so extreme, it ruptured his colon. Mr. Speaker, no parent should have to endure such unimaginable loss. The sentencing has taken place. Will the PM meet with Masi to discuss how we can ensure that tragedies like this never happen again?
The case she raises is utterly tragic, and as she went through those details, I think we all would have felt the same as I did, that it must be impossible to fathom how the family must feel in relation to this awful and tragic case. I will make sure that all the necessary meetings are set up in the way that she has asked for.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front benches change over.
Okay, thank you all for watching. We're still going to stay here. We're going to continue on. Anyone wants to carry on watching, I will get a shortened version of this uploaded any second. Thank you so much, everybody who's watched this today. Has been blown away. Our best viewing numbers so far. Don't forget, come back next week. Thank you again. Don't forget, hit that like button for me. We carry on.
We now come to the... Just let the benches clear. Come to the urgent question. Lee Ingham. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every year, this country spends around £400 billion of taxpayers' money on procurement. And if we're honest, under the current complex system, we do not always spend it as wisely as we could. That is why, just before the Easter recess, I announced a major package of reforms to the procurement system. And I'm grateful to have the chance to update the House today on it. Behind these reforms, Mr. Speaker, are three principles. First, that procurement should do much more to protect national security and support British businesses. Second, that it should deliver a fairer economy. And third, that it should be simpler, fairer and open doors to businesses, small businesses and charities. To take those in turn, Mr Speaker, this government believes it matters where things are made and who makes them. So we will issue new guidance for all government departments to make use of the national security exemptions in the Procurement Act to direct procurement to serve the national interest. We will start with 4 sectors critical to our national security: steel, shipbuilding, energy independence and AI. This will give a clear sign, Mr Speaker, that this Labour government will back British business, and we will use both the weight of our procurement budget and the powers in the Procurement Act to do so. We will also take 2 further steps to back British businesses. First, government departments will now be required to confirm whether prime contractors are using UK steel, and they will have to explain why they are not, if so. We will also develop a new shipbuilding framework to restrict government contracts to British firms where this supports our national security interests. Mr Speaker, the second principle of these reforms is that procurement should build a fairer economy. And the truth is that for decades, under successive governments, we have had a policy that essentially adds up to outsourcing by default. Well, Mr Speaker, under this Labour government, the age of outsourcing will end. We will, in line with our manifesto, introduce a public interest test, and it will apply to all government departments. They will now be required to assess whether a service can be delivered more effectively in-house, and if it cannot, a clear explanation must be published. Departments will also, for the first time, be required to publish robust insourcing strategies, setting out how, over the medium term, they will build the capacity to make the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation a reality. Mr Speaker, this marks a step change in how and who our public services are run by and for, and I am proud this Labour government is delivering it. Mr Speaker, we will also strengthen the role of social value in procurement. Too often, this has become a mere tick-box exercise and a barrier, not an opportunity, for SMEs and start-ups. So, working with trade unions, businesses and others, we will create a new definition of social value that will underpin all government procurement. The third principle of these reforms, Mr Speaker, is to make the procurement system simpler and fairer. I have heard too many times how the complexity, duplication and endless form filling of the current system is among the biggest barriers to SMEs and charities. So we will undertake a rapid review of all existing requirements in the procurement system, and we will see which burdens and duplications can be removed. If they are not essential, we will scrap them. We will enforce a tell us once principle.
No, you don't look at the clock. You look at me and you sit down. It's 3 minutes. I don't know who may have told you differently. There was something going wrong in advice that's been given. It's 3 minutes. I presume you're now going to come to the conclusion immediately. Yes, try the...
My apologies, Mr Speaker. I was told 5, but I apologise. I completely apologise.
No, sit down. Let's... When I stand up, please sit down. Don't remain at the dispatch box. I'm sorry that you were told 5 minutes. I think by now that ministers should know how long they get for a statement or a UQ. It is becoming an impossible situation where ministers try to change the rules of the House. They're not my rules. These are the rules of the backbenches. Please adhere to them.
I can only apologise, Mr Speaker. In conclusion, these reforms will back British businesses and workers, they will build a fair economy, they will simplify and open up our government procurement system. There is still much to do, but this is a big step forward, and I'm grateful to have the chance to set it out to the House today.
Ian.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A change in procurement policy that's more focused on backing British businesses, investing in Britain to help secure thousands of good unionised jobs, and by remaining community focused, the government will make sure local people are reaping the full rewards from this move. I welcome it, and I welcome the Minister's statements. Please could the Minister outline what the first steps are to deliver this procurement reform and what it will mean for manufacturers in my constituency and those in constituencies around the UK?
Can I thank her for that? And this is a point she's raised a number of times with me before around the importance of changing procurement rules. She's a tremendous champion on this. In terms of next steps, the Cabinet Office is working on new guidance that we will put before the House very shortly, I hope before the summer recess. that will sort of make flesh the commitments I've made today. And as I say, it has three big principles behind it: backing British businesses, creating a fairer economy, and making the system simpler and fairer for all.
Mike Wood, Shadowburst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate the honourable lady on securing this urgent question. I know how rare that is for a government PPS. And I welcome the government's ambition to... she's not anymore, sorry, I apologise. I welcome the government's ambition to modernise public procurement, but ambition, as ever, must be matched by delivery. And there are a number of questions the Minister must answer today. The government promised transparency through a new online register of commercial agreements. When precisely will that register be live, and will it be comprehensive from day one? Ministers often speak of backing small business. Will the Minister publish in a single, accessible place every department's SME target, its latest outturn, and whether it is on track or off track? And on prompt payment, how many suppliers have actually been excluded from major contracts for failing to meet the required standards? If this strategy is truly about value for money, why has the government still not resolved the fragmentation, poor quality frameworks and poor use of data and technology that was identified by the National Audit Office? On national security, contracting authorities are now required to assess risks, not just from the prime contractors, but from associated persons and subcontractors. How many procurements have been referred for national security consideration, and how many suppliers have been excluded or challenged as a result? What assurances can the Minister give that public contracts are not still flowing into supply chains with links to hostile states? And what assessment has the Minister made of the EU's emerging Buy Europe policies? Isn't this a protectionist barrier by the European Union? And finally, if social value is now mandatory at 10%, what assessment has been made of the risk that this adds cost and complexity, and particularly for SMEs? I know the House will want clear answers.
For those questions, let me try and answer a few of them. Firstly, on SMEs and department spend. I mean, as I say, part of this package is to try and support SMEs and to make sure they have a greater chance of winning contracts. We did publish the departmental spends the day before recess. I know there was a lot going on, but we have published them. They are there, and they show a very ambitious step forward. I believe around £7 billion of government contracts will go to SMEs as a result of those changes. I'm very proud of what we are doing. It's the first time government have done it, and we've helped drive that through. We've worked very hard on that. He asked about Buy Europe. Look, this is not in conflict with any of our international agreements. It's obviously not in conflict also with our negotiations with the EU that my right honourable friend is leading on, and we work closely on that. But at the heart of this, though, is a recognition that we need to use our procurement budget within international law and with international regulations to do more to support our industries. And that is quite the right thing to do, and I hope we can get cross-party support. He also asked me about social value. Again, I think he was implying that we are making this mandatory. It is already mandatory, and it is already weighted at 10% within the contracting system. I'm not changing that here. What I'm saying is I'm changing the definition of social value. So it will do more to support communities, and it will do more to make sure that it really works and it really supports communities for doing it. So there's no change on that. He asked me a couple of specific questions around national security points. I will get back to him if that's okay. But in general terms, I hope we can get cross-party support on this. The Procurement Act was passed with cross-party support. It was a step forward, but this is the next big step in trying to make sure we do much more with that budget to support Britain.
Deb John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me applaud the government's move to use the £400 billion of public procurement, almost 1/8 of British GDP, in the interests of the British people and the British economy. And the Select Committee for Science, Innovation and Technology has often heard that a government contract is worth more than a government grant to the start-ups and spin-outs, which are so important to our economy. Can you also confirm that this approach will be joined up with our strategy for sovereign capability, so that we do not find ourselves once again in the position where the Ministry of Defence awards a contract without competition to a large US AI company, Parliamentary, when there are UK companies desperate for that kind of investment?
Can I thank her for that? And obviously she brings a huge level of expertise and background on this. And just to reassure her, part of the package I'm announcing, and announced before Easter, is to try and help our sovereign AI industry, and it is to help science and technology as well, and to really boost startups. Because a lot of the stories I've heard in the time I've been doing this job is about how the procurement rules work fine if you have a large procurement part of your company to try and win them. It's not so good if you're a startup, if you're a voluntary group, if you're trying to win your way into government contracts. We should be doing much more to help them. And yes, we are joining this up across government. It will be with the industrial strategy and also with our steel strategy I spoke about earlier as well.
Lisa Smart, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. We need to do far more to back British small businesses through public procurement, both to boost growth and to ensure our own national security. Public procurement amounts to hundreds of billions a year. The Procurement Act was meant to ensure more of that money reached British small businesses, but in practice, for many, they report it's made things worse. Payment rules are being flouted by middlemen who face no consequences. Suppliers who complain are threatened with losing future work. Bad debts are mounting. This is public money disappearing into a vacuum and a security risk. There are businesses asking, what is the point of legislation that rogue traders can ignore with complete impunity while loyal British SMEs are being pushed out of the market they built? Does the Minister agree that the target for government spending with small businesses should be far higher than the current level? And could he explain when will the payment reporting transparency be implemented?
Thank you very much. Look, I basically agree with her assessment of the procurement system and how it doesn't do what it should. As I say, £400 billion of taxpayers' money is being spent here. We need to make sure we spend it, every pound of that, to support British industry as far as we can, and to support jobs and deliver fairness. And to support SMEs on that as well. I would just point out, though, I think the Procurement Act did help SMEs. It did make progress towards it, but it doesn't go far enough. And, you know, it's not the job of this government to defend the status quo. It's the job of this government to change it. So we will do that. I will come back to her on the specific point around payment thresholds.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to my honourable friend and neighbour from Staffordshire for securing this question. Could I ask the Minister very simply, the government's taking the right steps towards this procurement strategy, but there is a lot more that could be done if you wanted to truly buy British, back British and build British. That could start with government car service. He will know from written parliamentary questions he sent to me that 1/3 of the government car service is used by foreign cars. He will know that police services in this country use foreign-made cars. He will know that we import bricks in this country to build houses that are funded by Homes England money by taxpayers. So can he look at the easy wins that he could do by looking at how the government is a consumer of products to reorientate that spend this week towards British companies?
Can I thank him for that? Look, there are few greater champions of a Buy British agenda than my honourable friend, although there are a few of us in government as well. And look, we are trying to make progress on that. What I'm setting out here is what I can do with government guidance and what I can do by using the exemptions that already exist in national security restrictions. We haven't jumped to legislation. I'm trying to use the powers that I have. The point he's making, though, is about a bigger agenda that we, hopefully can get to drive forward more support for British industry. This is the start of it. It is not the end, and we will work with him on doing it.
Julian.
Too often consumers buy products which, when they get to examine them, turn out to have been manufactured in places like China. What safeguards has the government got in its own new procurement strategy that there are no concealed foreign supply chain components in the contracts that it intends to award? And why are the SMEs or any company that is bidding having to demonstrate trade union recognition if they might have a workforce that doesn't require this?
Minister. Can I thank him for that? On the first point, look, we do have, DBT I think has lead over it, but we do have robust processes in place on supply chains. The announcement I made before Easter doesn't refer to that, doesn't change that, so it's sticking with the existing protections we have there and the existing regulations of the Procurement Act. What I'm talking about here is how we can use those powers to direct departments and use government's buying power to do more on it. On his union point, I'm sorry, I missed the very end of his point. There is nothing in here to change union recognition within the procurement system. That can already be weighted within the social value requirement. But what it does do is make a really important step on insourcing around government departments, which I'm incredibly proud of that this government's doing and is part of the manifesto we were elected on.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for the changes, which are a welcome vote of confidence in UK business and industry, and I welcome the rapid review of existing requirements, which we know can slow down the procurement process, leading to frustration and inefficiencies all round. But ahead of International Workers' Memorial Day, will he commit to having inclusive PPE as a specification in any new public sector procurement contracts and lead the way in improving workplace safety?
Minister.
Can I thank her for this? And this is not the first time my honourable friend has raised this. We have met on it as well. She's championing this case. And it is a really important one because it addresses an iniquity that many workers feel. We are working, the Cabinet Office we are working on this point. We are looking at it. Our view at the moment is that mandation is not the right way forward and that we can work with industry to try and roll this out. But look, the Equalities Law already protects and makes sure that this should be delivered. I accept, because she's made the case incredibly powerfully, that is not always happening. But I'm very keen to keep working with her, GMB Trade Union and others on this issue.
James White.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Spending on public procurement was £400 billion last year. So I'd like to ask the Minister a question I asked his predecessor over a year ago, which she was unable to answer then. What is the government's precise savings target from that budget?
Minister.
One excellent question. I'm afraid I'm going to have to get back to him. I don't know the answer. This is just say there is nothing in the announcement I've made that is requiring additional Treasury funding. It is within existing budgets. But the point he makes is a good one, so I will come back to him if that's okay.
Rachel Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Minister join me in congratulating Bedworth company Toy Kenning & Spencer, who have a proud history of ribbon weaving and supplying ribbons for insignia and medals to the Queen, the King and the Government for many years? And could he tell me how the procurement strategy will help other local manufacturers in North Warwickshire and Bedworth?
Minister.
I certainly can, and can I thank her for raising that? Look, these are exactly the kind of companies we want to be helping. It's exactly the kind of British companies we want to back, and communities as well that, as I say, should have a real stake in how procurement money is used. So I hope we can do more on that, and I'm happy to take up the specific point with her and the specific company.
We'll put it in there. Who can we start? Joshua Reynolds.
Mr Speaker. On the Business and Trade Select Committee, one of the things we've heard time and time again is if we want to transform the economic health of small and medium enterprises, we need to direct greater share of public procurement towards those. But the British Chamber of Commerce has said that we are stuck in a rut at 20% of spending going to SMEs. So what is the Minister doing to try and join up the approach across Whitehall to ensure we have a greater amount of spending going towards these SMEs?
Can I thank him for that? And I say I agree. More money of this budget should be going to SMEs. We are already taking steps on that to do so. We've already announced powers so contracts can be reserved in local communities through powers. We've already increased the amount of government spend. As I say, the spending targets across Whitehall for the first time went out. Over £7 billion of government money will go now to SMEs. And I'm working very closely with the FSB and lots of other small businesses on that. And I should just point out and thank the FSB and others, because the reforms in here are aimed to support SMEs and voluntary sector as well. I should emphasise that as well. Designed in collaboration and work with them, because they know the system isn't working, I know it isn't working, and we need to get more money down towards them. So we've done a bit, we've done a lot of stuff, there's a lot more to do, and this is part of that.
Lindsay Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I represent, as the member for Amber Valley, Denby Pottery, which is sadly in administration, and I'm desperately trying to save it.
It's a joy in this House to use crockery made in the UK, and I welcome the Minister's recent announcement on procurement, but I have written to him to ask him to go further and include ceramics. I look forward to receiving his response in due course, but can I take this opportunity to repeat my request today so that we don't lose a whole sector by degree?
Minister.
Yeah, can I thank her for that? And also on her point on Denby, look, I can appreciate how important this is to her constituency and how difficult it will be for workers there at the moment. I understand government officials have been working with Denby over recent weeks to ensure that support is put in place as the administration process unfolds. I hope obviously that can support the workers affected as much as possible. On the broader point about the ceramics industry, and I think he'll have some support from the benches behind him on this as well. As I say, what I've announced here in this package is to look at the four sectors that are immediately critical to national security using the existing powers that we have. That is not where I want to stop. I want to go further, but it's what I can do at the moment. But I'm very happy to work with her and honourable friends to try and do so.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister is right in trying to support small businesses by cutting red tape. But can he explain, while he is saying that at the dispatch box, another part of government is requiring any business seeking a government contract to demonstrate trade union recognition? Does he not accept that that is completely irrelevant as to whether a business provides a good service and good value for money? And does he not appreciate that this only imposes additional costs on businesses?
Minister.
Yeah, I mean, look, trade union rights are not inconsistent with what I'm setting out here. And I'm sorry, I don't know the point he's making about there's no requirement to have a trade union recognition within government contracts, within the procurement system. And what I'm doing here is I'm not changing that. I'm not changing how that plays out. What I'm trying to do is to simplify the system, remove the burdens where I can, look at the procurement system from start to finish, strip out all the duplication, strip out the erroneous stuff in there that has crept up like a Christmas tree over time, and to make it simpler and make it fairer. But that is also going to happen at the same time as making sure that we deliver the generation of insourcing that this government was elected to do, and that can bring to an end decades of outsourcing by default.
Ben Goldsborough.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I refer the House to my register of members' interests. One of the important aspects of our spending as a government is on the NHS within food procurement, with £500 million being spent every year in England alone. So can I stress on the government to make sure that we back British farming and back British food and ensure that these processes we're undertaking now support our British farmers?
Minister.
Yes, he's absolutely right to point that out, and to point out, I think, the link also between food security and national security and economic security, which is an increasingly important part. As I say, these reforms that we announced deal with 4 sectors in the first instance that we feel are the most immediately available with the powers we have. But it's not where, as I say, we want to end. And I'm happy to work with him and the farming industry and others on this to see what more we can do.
Shurkat Adam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hear and I appreciate much of the statement that the Minister has made regarding procurement. I'd like to deflect his attention to textile procurement, especially when the Ministry of Defence has contracted £37 million worth of military gear to foreign factories, including those in China, and the NHS nurses and NHS PPE, 23 million, is again manufactured abroad. All the while, my constituency of Leicester South has factories, has the workforce, and we're ready. And we're suffering with a cost of living crisis. So can I ask the Minister to consider procurement of onshoring textiles, please?
Yes, he can. And thank you for raising that particular point. Look, the thrust, as I say, and he can clearly detect from what I'm trying to say, is I want to do more to support British businesses. I want to support British industries. And I want to make sure we're doing everything I can within the existing powers to do that. As I say, we've set out 4 sectors that we can do that straight away, we feel. There are others I'm sure we can look at going forward. I'm happy to work with him on that.
Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many in Portsmouth, like me, will welcome today's announcement, particularly the new shipbuilding framework and commitment to renewed bids. to reward bids that deliver local jobs and skills. Can the Minister outline today and meet with me to look at how these reforms will help ensure that cities like Portsmouth, who had shipbuilding removed from us by the Tories, can once again share in defence, maritime and indeed energy and infrastructure and AI procurement opportunities?
Yes, she makes an excellent point, and obviously the shipbuilding industry is incredibly important for her constituency and for others around the country. Look, there are specific points in this package that is designed to support that. And just to re-emphasise, we're going to work with the National Shipbuilding Organisation to try and work a specific framework to ensure that we can direct procurement to British companies to deliver shipbuilding. I think for too long that hasn't happened. We have seen in recent weeks and months the importance of having a sovereign capacity to do this. Portsmouth is a fine place to try and do so, as are others around the country. I shouldn't get too far into that. But look, that is one of the reasons we have picked shipbuilding early on. It's one of the reasons I'm going to work with the NSO to try and do that. And I'm happy to meet with her to do so.
Alison Bennett. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. PVL is an SME in Burgess Hill who fabricate high-visibility livery supplying 80% of police vehicles and 40% of ambulances. They are being hammered by the rules enacted in the 2023 Procurement Act. Converters are the middlemen that take a regular vehicle and turn it into an emergency appliance. 30-day payment terms set out in the Act are not enforceable. New tendering requirements cost time and money, but converters are under no obligation to use approved suppliers. And converters often go out of business owing money to the rest of the supply chain. This is a colossal waste of public sector money. Will the Minister agree to visit PVL just over the border from his constituency, and so we can discuss these challenges? Minister.
Can I thank her? Always a kind invitation to come up the road to Burgess Hill. Look, she raises a really good point. Obviously, I don't know the specifics of the company, but she's raising exactly the kind of case that we should be trying to work with to end and support. I'm happy to meet with her, and if she sends me the details of the company, I'll look into that as well.
David Smith.
Deputy Speaker, I'd like to warmly welcome this statement from the Minister. It seems to me for many years, whereas European partners have been able to have significant sovereign procurement programmes, we so often tied ourselves up in knots, unable to do it. The Honourable Member, my friend from South Norfolk, has slightly gazumped me in this question when he asked about how the government has a commitment to half of all food purchased across the public sector to be locally produced or certified. So if I can ask the Minister, what can we do to connect the plans that he has to ensuring that we cut out the middleman and make sure that farm gate produce is essential to our procurement programme?
Minister.
Yeah, can I thank him for that? And building on a point previously made, it is really important we do as much as we can to support British farming industry and to have a national plan and national food security on that as well. I'm happy to take up the specifics and work with him and DEFRA on that.
Jim Allister.
Is there an expectation that the procurement principles enunciated today will be followed through with local authorities? And if so, can we expect to see an end to the scandal of bodies like London Transport buying Chinese buses rather than British-made buses? Are we going to do anything about that?
Minister.
I would very much like to do so. I've spoken with the Department of Transport about this. This is a broad issue about how you work with regional authorities and within the devolution system we have, because that's where the power on some of these decisions lie. But I'm working with the Department of Transport on it. I'm happy to keep him updated on it.
Chris Blah.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I congratulate my honourable friend for securing this important question. I thank the Minister for his statement, and the businesses in my constituency, a manufacturing town, strongly welcome this new approach, and we should be unashamedly proud to back our British businesses. Yeah. Can I ask the Minister to reassure me that he is speaking to small businesses, local authorities and our trade union colleagues on defining social value, so we get this right and truly and proudly back British businesses for the future?
Minister.
Absolutely, and I say we should be much prouder, I think, as a government and a political party about supporting British businesses and supporting local communities, and that's what I'm trying to do with this statement. In terms of working with others, as I say, I've been working on this for many, many months, and my predecessor also has been as well. We've worked with trade unions, we've worked with businesses, we've worked with voluntary sector groups and charities on this, and the proposals I've come with are an amalgam. of that, but they are not the end of the road, and there's going to be work done now with unions, businesses, etc., on that to try and get the guidance right and put these through. I should also say, one of the reasons I'm particularly proud of some of this is it's been welcomed both by trade unions and by businesses as well. It is not often that happens these days, and I'm particularly pleased we've managed to achieve it.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I also welcome the Minister's response to the urgent question and going British first in our procurement strategy for over £400 billion spent per year. The Minister, no doubt, is aware that members across this House, including myself, have repeatedly raised concerns about Palantir's ethics, its record of complicity in human rights abuses, including the genocide in Gaza, and the way it has secured extremely large public contracts here in the UK. Can he explain how awarding hundreds of millions of pounds, in many instances with no full open tender process, to a single US surveillance and technology firm who released a dystopian manifesto for world domination over the weekend, is compatible with the modern procurement strategy that claims to put transparency, value for money and the public interest at heart?
Minister.
Can I thank him for that? He's right to say that part of what I'm trying to do is to support British businesses and reduce our reliance on others. On the specific point he makes around Palantir, the two contracts he's referring to are NHS and MOD-led contracts. Those are the departments that led on those. I think it's probably best directed at him. If he wants to write to me, I'm happy to try and pick that up as well. But I say they were NHS and MOD contracts. They did go through the procurement process, but it's those are the lead departments.
Jonathan Davies.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much welcome what the Minister has to say about the principles behind how we will use £400 billion of government procurement to back the companies up and down this country and the workers behind them by buying British. But of course there are many more billions of pounds spent across the wider public sector, including by local authorities, the NHS and the police, for example. As he develops this process, can he tell me a bit more about what he'll be doing to bring those other bits of the public sector on board, especially to back the automotive trade?
Minister.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. And just to clarify, the guidance that we're bringing forward and the reforms I'm talking about today will apply to government departments and not the broader public sector. Now, the reason for that is that I don't have the ministers and the government do not have the power to direct beyond government through mere guidance. I would need primary legislation to do that. That is something we are pushing very hard on, and I'm hoping to come forward in a future session. That would require legislation. But what you should note, and what I hope everybody notes, including the market and local authorities, is the reforms I'm announcing here are the reforms I want to see rolled out across the public sector and working with local authorities as well. We want to test and learn in government and roll it out more widely, but that would require primary legislation to do that.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for his answers to the questions. In light of the recent, very specific Northern Ireland question I want to ask you, in light of the recent public accounts report that has highlighted the fragmented nature of Northern Ireland, 9 separate centres of procurement, what steps can the Minister take to ensure that the SMEs, and he referred to that earlier on, are not further disadvantaged by conflicting administrative requirements across these bodies? And how will the promised Tell Us Once digital platform be successfully integrated with Northern Ireland's existing tender NI system to prevent duplication of the bureaucratic burden on small firms who are struggling? Thank you.
Minister.
Can I thank him? Yeah, he raises a really, really good point. And as I say, part of the aim, one of the 3 principles behind this is to reduce duplication, reduce burdens, simplify the system. My feeling in general is that whoever's been in this job has come here over years and has always added more and more bits to the Christmas tree, and it's become more and more unwieldy. I want to try and strip that back. If it's okay with him, if he could write to me about the specific points he's raised, I will pick it up, and I'm very happy to meet with him to do so as well.
Adam Jurgey.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. I congratulate my honourable friend and constituency neighbour from Stafford for securing this urgent question. In Newcastle Line, we make excellent British bricks, Madam Deputy Speaker, Ipstock in Chesterton. And can I draw the Minister's attention to my 10-minute rule bill on British bricks? And will he take the opportunity to confirm today that these changes will result in a British Vic first approach to public contracts as we build the homes, community centres, schools and hospitals that our communities desperately need.
Minister.
I congratulate him on his 10-minute rule bill, and he's raising a really important issue that's obviously incredibly important to his constituency and to many others. As I say, we are starting with the 4 industries that I've set out today. We'll look at others going forward, and I'm happy to talk with him and see what more we can do in the future.
Dr Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I do thank the Minister for his answer to the urgent question. It is common sense, however, that we do use the government's procurement power to support British jobs. Sadly, that same common sense is lacking in Scotland, where the Scottish Government's buying ferries from Poland, Turkey and China. And yesterday, Unite highlighted that the Scottish Government has given a grant to private bus companies in Scotland to buy 166 buses from China. Meanwhile, Lothian Buses, publicly owned, is using its share of the grant to buy buses from the fantastic Alexander Dennis Limited. So does the Minister join me in hoping that on the 7th of May, Scotland will elect a government that puts British jobs first and vote Labour? And secondly, Madam Deputy Speaker, in my constituency I have an FC UK biscuit factory which makes a delicacy known as the Jammy Dodger biscuit. Will this change make it more likely that when I next visit the Minister's department that Jammy Dodger biscuits will be available to me?
Minister.
I have to say, of all the questions I was mulling over when going through this, the impact on Jammy Dodgers wasn't top of my list, but maybe it should have been. So let me think about that. But look, he makes a really good point about how the Scottish Government haven't used their procurement, the powers to do this well enough over years, and the fiascos he highlighted show that. It's a shame there's no one from the SNP here to hear that, but it's good that there are Labour MPs to make the case for doing more to support jobs in Scotland.
Chris Vins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his response to the urgent question from my honourable friend from Stafford, Eccleshaw and the villages. Can the Minister tell the House how this Labour government's reforms to public procurement will unlock hundreds of millions of pounds for our SMEs, and particularly how it will benefit those SMEs in Harlow? And while he's talking briefly, he has to previous honourable friends about food security, and sadly we don't make Jammy Dodgers in Harlow. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. But I would also point out that when we talk about food security, although it's important we support our farming industry, I would also draw attention to the Lee Valley growers, which are glasshouse growers in my constituency of Harlow, and also Wright's Flowers, who are a flour mill.
Minister.
Can I thank him for that and raising a number of points in there. He talked about supporting SMEs and that. That's incredibly important to what this government's trying to do more broadly, but what these reforms try and do specifically. If you permit me, Madam Deputy Speaker, I also want to just point out about what we should do more to support the voluntary sector as well, because, in my opinion, the charitable sector doesn't get a fair enough crack at this, and the system is weighted against it. I have particularly in mind, I had a visit to a women's centre in my constituency in Brighton, a fantastic charity, been working for a long time, doing amazing work. They told me that they were spending around £35,000 on a procurement process, having to divert resources that should be used to support people in real need to order to compete in a procurement process that is stacked against them because the big companies and the big providers have the money and the expertise to do it. We cannot defend a status quo that does that. I will not do that, and that's why we're trying to do this.
That concludes the urgent question. Point of order on this urgent question, Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister was asked several times about trade union requirements in public procurement contracts. Yet on the 4th of December, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Cabinet Office said in Hansard that the government's social value model provides opportunities to reward suppliers that recognise trade unions. Madam Deputy Speaker, could I seek your guidance as to how I could ask the Minister to confirm those 2 points together?
Minister.
Well, I would just point out an opportunity is not a requirement. The question I was being posed there was about there being a requirement on trade union recognition. That is not the same as there being an opportunity to be reflected within the system. That's the difference between those statements. And as I say, nothing in this changes the status of trade unions within the procurement system. But what it does do is it delivers on a really important manifesto commitment we made to end the age of insourcing and bring more work in-house.
That concludes all matters relating to the urgent question. I'll now give a few moments for the front benches to swap over and for the House to settle.
Okay, let me know in the chat if you want me to carry on with this. I'll give it a couple of minutes for you to respond and we go from there. Thank you.
Contractual and commercial decisions. The security and dignity of those who've dedicated their careers to our public services are not negotiable, and they deserve a pension service that's reliable, efficient and secure. But for these principles to be more than just words, they need to be underpinned by rigorous accountability and a refusal to accept second best. We recognise that for our public servants, these services are the foundation of their financial security, and when the standards they deserve are not upheld, the Government will not hesitate to act decisively to protect their interests. It's in that context I want to give the first update to the House on the Royal Mail Statutory Pension Scheme. Following a failure to meet critical transition milestones and a lack of confidence in Capita's ability to implement and transition to the new operating model in a timely fashion, I'm announcing today to the House that I have terminated the new Royal Mail Statutory Pension Scheme contract with Capita. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, Capita had an 18-month planning window to prepare for the transition. They failed to deliver numerous milestones, including a failure to implement the required IT automation. The Cabinet Office repeatedly flagged delays in transition milestones and that IT automation, ultimately issuing formal correspondence to reaffirm the mandatory requirements. To ensure members are protected, we will ensure continuity of the existing contract. But let the message be clear, I will not and we will not tolerate delivery failure from contracted partners. Public services require high-quality delivery, and public money should not be used to fund performance that falls short of the standards we expect. Madam Deputy Speaker, I also want to address problems in the administration of the Civil Service Pension Scheme. The transition process from the previous provider, MyCSP, was not satisfactory. We are investigating the respective liabilities for those failures as between Capita and MyCSP. Given the criticality of these services, the Cabinet Office Permanent Secretary and I discussed transition with the Chief Executive Officer of Capita. We sought and were given explicit personal assurances that the transition would be handled with the utmost care and that any backlogs would be managed effectively. I'm sorry to say those assurances have not been met. And it is clear in any event that the delivery of the service to civil servants since the transfer on 1st of December last year has fallen far short of the required standard. The delays civil servants have faced in accessing their civil service pensions are unacceptable, especially in view of their many years of dedicated public service. Now, that is why I established a specialist pensions recovery task force, led by the second Permanent Secretary at HMRC, Angela MacDonald, to take strategic oversight on the scheme's management. That intervention, which, by the way, includes a circa 140-person government surge team to bolster operational capacity, is delivering results because through this intervention, we've helped Capita clear 15,000 inherited unread emails and telephony wait times that averaged at over 90 minutes earlier this year have been successfully brought down to an average of under 2 minutes. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to say that the stories we have heard of members missing mortgage payments and falling into hardship are distressing and entirely unacceptable. No one should have to face such financial anxiety after a lifetime of dedicated public service. It's why I took immediate action to ensure that no member was left to face these challenges alone whilst these service issues are being resolved. So to mitigate the impact on those most affected, we've already provided over £7.2 million in interest-free transitional support loans to more than 1,300 members. We are proactively driving the uptake of these loans to ensure no member in need of support is missed, and I encourage all honourable and right honourable members to ask their eligible constituents to reach out to their civil service employers for these loans so we can provide the support, the vital support they deserve. I can tell the House too that Capita was explicitly instructed in July 2025 to prepare for the volumes they are now seeing. They knew the scale of the challenge, but they failed to deliver the IT automation and portal functionality required at Go Live. The result, I'm afraid to say, is a backlog of around 24,000 outstanding pension quotations, and I say to the House as well, a backlog of over 1,500 open MP complaints. Now that is totally unacceptable, and I've instructed officials to speak to Capita about how we can ensure that MP correspondence is dealt with quickly and efficiently, noting the importance of members across the House who are all speaking up for their constituents. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represent thousands of individuals who are unable to plan for their futures or retire with dignity. I have to say as well, though, Madam Deputy Speaker, service delivery is about more than just speed. It's also about the absolute security of member data. And the breach we saw on the 30th of March, which saw personal information compromised on the pension portal, represents a fundamental failure in data protection. And I'd be clear with the House, I will not tolerate these lapses. The Cabinet Office has formally notified the Information Commissioner's Office of this breach, and we've written formally to the Chief Executive Officer of Capita to demand a full technical account of this failure and a guarantee that it will not happen again. Madam Deputy Speaker, across the civil service pension scheme, we have taken direct action on all commercial levers. We are withholding milestone payments where deliverables have not been met, and we reserve every right to take further formal action. With regard to service levels, the Cabinet Office has mandated a clear recovery target. Capita must clear all inherited arrears by the end of this month and restore service levels to standard contractually required levels by the end of June this year. We will continue to use every commercial lever at our disposal to ensure that these standards are met. Madam Deputy Speaker, the security and dignity of all those who have dedicated their careers to our civil service and the Royal Mail are not negotiable. They deserve a pension service that is reliable, efficient and secure. So we will, and I will continue to use every lever at our disposal to ensure those standards are met and that members receive the service that they have earned. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Minister Mike.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to begin by paying tribute to our fantastic public servants, both civil servants and our postal workers. The vast majority give so much in the service of our country and the general public. And this week, perhaps more than any other, is a reminder that it's ministers' responsibility to provide the political leadership so that they can deliver. The minister's decision to terminate the Royal Mail statutory pension scheme is enormously consequential. It will be welcomed by many in this House, but more so by our many retired postal workers. And while I appreciate being given advance sight of pension scheme, the Minister has come to the House with a statement rather more with a plan, because it's clear that the current situation, as the Minister did say, is the culmination of a series of entirely unforced errors by Capita. Capita's failure to adequately administer the CSPS has caused real and significant financial distress to thousands of former public servants. People like my constituent Chris, who's found himself without the pension that he was relying on at just the time that his wife has had to step back from work after a cancer diagnosis. Now, these people worked hard. They planned responsibly for retirement, and they did so on the basis that the CSPS would be there for them when they needed. And Capita's failures have left them anxious, frustrated, and in many cases, desperately out of pocket. Yet in all too many cases that I'm aware of, Capita has been utterly unresponsive, and sadly, the constituents and others from around the country have contacted me about Capita, simply wouldn't recognise the Minister's claim of answer times being down to 2 minutes. This really isn't the way to reward a career of dedicated public service. Last year, the National Audit Office highlighted that Capita had failed to meet 3 of the 6 key transition milestones that had been due by March 2025. All these milestones related to scheme design and operational readiness.
And in October last year, 2 months before ministers had to make a final decision on the transition to Capita, the Public Accounts Committee noted Capita had missed milestones to deliver its IT systems. The committee called on the Cabinet Office to fully develop contingency plans before making a final decision whether Capita should take over administration on 1st of December last year. And the Minister's Department confirmed that 4 months after the transition was completed, Capita has still not met 3 transition milestones, while 1 is only partially met. It's only at this point that the Ministers brought forward the contingency plans, the same contingency plans that the Public Accounts Committee recommended months before. But the warning signs were there and they should have been clear and obvious. Despite this, in November last year, a full year and a half after the government took office, the government wrote to trade unions confirming that ministers were pressing ahead with Capita's contract. Now, we all agree that it is in everyone's interest that the CSPS's operational stability is restored as quickly as possible. Capita, after all, won this contract because of the failure of the previous MyCSP contract, and a further change would clearly mean more disruption, causing further harm to those who have already been so badly impacted. But ministers must ensure that Capita meets its contractual obligations consistently, and that any penalty clauses in the contract that can be enforced are enforced, to allow for compensation to be paid. So the Minister does have some questions to answer. On behalf of those missing out because of Capita's failings, will the Minister unequivocally commit to delivering that functioning service in the timeframe he has set himself? Can the Minister confirm that his department has delivered the standardised mitigation letter for CSPS members to share with lenders to explain their temporary financial difficulties? This was promised last month. Has that been delivered? And I understand that there will be a commercial session to discuss the penalties Capita is facing and what officials have called wider commercial position on 28th of April. Can the Minister tell the House, will he be attending in person? Will he commit to update the House at the earliest opportunity following that meeting? And will he elaborate on exactly what his officials mean when they refer to Capita's wider commercial position? And finally, and most importantly, what contingency plans has the Minister put in place for if it does become necessary to terminate Capita's contract for the CSPS, as he has done today for the Royal Mail scheme?
I'm grateful to the Shadow Minister. I first of all echo his tributes to public servants, including his constituent Chris, and I'm very sorry to hear about his wife's cancer diagnosis. I welcome, I think, what was his support for my decision to terminate the Royal Mail statutory pension scheme. But can I turn to the civil service pension scheme? He talks about a plan. I've been implementing a plan, and I've come here to update the House on my implementation of it. He also talks about the contract. The contract for the Capita pension scheme was awarded by the previous government in November 2023 on a long-term basis. That is what I inherited and have been trying to deal with. And he talks about the point of transition. What I did at the point of transition was to get in the Chief Executive of Capita, together with the Cabinet Office Permanent Secretary, to go through these different matters and to seek assurances. I'm afraid to say those assurances have not been met. He talks about not meeting milestones. I can assure him milestone payments have been withheld, and I will not hesitate to use the commercial levers that are under this contract to drive performance. That is why I'm being as well absolutely clear about that restoration of service by the end of June of this year. That is what I am upholding Capita to. He also talks about my CSP, and what I have said is we are reserving rights under both these contracts, both the backlog that was left by my CSP and then how Capita have dealt with it since. There are, of course, in relation to my CSP, there's also an option to pursue a parent company guarantee as well. And he can be assured that I will explore all possible legal options to ensure that the service that public servants rightly deserve, not just on retirement, but in very, very difficult circumstances in their lives as well, like death in service, are actually being dealt with sensitively. He talks about, of course, forthcoming meetings and updates. I will of course consider appropriate steps for me to take, and indeed updating the House, and indeed members across the House when they write to me as well.
Yeah. Right, Betts.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Public Accounts Committee has had a number of hearings on that, and I'm sure the Chair will be wanting to ask some questions as well. Just to say, first of all, there's shared responsibilities here. My CSP have got responsibilities, but I'd say also the Cabinet Office oversaw this, and I think there are real questions the Minister should be asking of officials in the Cabinet Office about their degree of responsibility for this as well. And in terms of assurances, we've had so many assurances on this, so the June assurances, are they really going to be kept to? Could I say just a couple of questions, Madam Deputy Speaker? First of all, this is, isn't it, not just a one-off issue. The Civil Service Pension Scheme has had at least 3 different problems with 3 different providers in the past. We've had the Teachers' Pension Scheme, the Royal Mail Pension Scheme, an awful lot of them. So we asked the Cabinet Secretary, whether, the Permanent Secretary at the Cabinet Office, whether she would go away and look in the future at having an in-house team built up to actually administer public sector pensions in a way that might probably prevent these recurring problems with a variety of private sector providers, which always seem to go wrong.
Well, first of all, you can rest assured that I have interrogated officials on the situation I inherited on this. And in terms of the point about assurances and promises not being met, I think the House can say today, when assurances are not made, I take decisive action on it, and I take decisive commercial action as well, which is what he has seen both in terms of the Royal Mail Statutory Pension Scheme, but also with regard to withholding milestone payments in respect of Capita as well. And could I say he's talked about, obviously, both that issue of whether we're looking at insourcing more things, which clearly is the government's pledge and the government's policy going forward. And I think in particular with regard to the Royal Mail Statutory Pension Scheme, we will of course look at a range of options in both those categories to ensure that we get the very, very best possible service for those who deserve it and those who rely on it.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Charlie Maynard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. So we've learned today that this contract was awarded 2.5 years ago. They had 2.5 years to prepare Capita for taking on the administration of the Civil Service Scheme. The Public Accounts Committee, as just mentioned, also warned in October that Capita was not ready for it, yet they took on the contract regardless on the 1st of December. And we learned today also that the government has terminated another Capita scheme for the Royal Mail's pension scheme. So my Witney constituents would like to know the following answers to the following questions. How many people on the Civil Service Pension Scheme, as of now, have not received the payments they should have? Why taxpayers should be paying for the surge of 140 staff of HMRC staff who have come in to sort this out? Surely Capita should be paying for their incompetence. What is the timeline to Capita clearing up all inherited arrears? And is Capita prioritising hardship and bereavement cases? And with regard to the Royal Mail Pension Scheme, where Capita has been terminated, what is the plan now?
Mr.
There's as I said in my statement, there's a backlog of around 24,000 outstanding pension quotations. With regard, he's absolutely right, by the way, about the taxpayer not having to pick up the tab for Capita's failures. And with regard to the surge team, I can say there has been an offer from Capita to cover the costs of it. I will consider that in the broad consideration of all the commercial issues that there are in respect of this contract. My priority is for taxpayers to not have to foot the bill for issues that have been caused by the provider and is of no fault of the people who are the beneficiaries of this scheme. With regard to the Royal Mail statutory scheme, as I have said, what we will do now, we will ensure continuity of service, because I think that's very important, though I think he'll see, I've made a very decisive decision in terms of the future of that contract today. We will then look at a range of options for that going forward, but it's that continuity of service that is obviously a priority in the short term.
John MacDonald.
Can I declare an interest? I'm the chair of the PCS Parliamentary Trade Union Group. The Minister just said there was an offer from Capita. It shouldn't be an offer, it should be a requirement that they cover the cost of the recovery costs. It was outrageous that this civil service scheme was given to Capita after its failure on the teachers' pension scheme, the failure with regard to the NHS and the data releases that took place there, and also even the failure in the military contract. And it has affected so many of the civil service pensioners. It's caused real harm and suffering and stress. But it was equally outrageous, I have to say, that their performance has not warranted the removal of the contract altogether. He's terminated today the contract with regard to Royal Mail. Why hasn't he terminated this contract? In addition to that, my honourable friend has raised the issue about the preparation of an in-house provision. My honourable friend did not refer to the civil service pension scheme preparations for an in-house provision. Could I ask him to meet with the trade unions and let us discuss now how we transfer the administration of the civil service pension scheme in-house? Because as sure as night follows day, Capita will fail on this as exactly it has on every other contract.
Well, I certainly echo what my right honourable friend said in terms of the imperative of taxpayers not footing the bill for what has gone wrong. In terms of the different contracts, each obviously has to be considered on its own merits, but the House can be assured that on each of these contracts that the Cabinet Office is responsible for, I keep all contractual options open. With regard to his point around optionality in the future about going in-house, I will certainly ensure that the trade union PCS gets the appropriate ministerial meeting.
Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister today for his statement and for meeting with me to discuss this issue. As he is aware, the Public Accounts Committee have held multiple sessions with Capita on the broader civil service pension schemes and the problems that scheme members are having accessing their pensions. As numerous colleagues around the House will have experienced, some of these cases are tragic and deeply distressing, people not being able to get statements at the most important points of their life, or even payments at the most important points of their life. So does the Minister have confidence that his team will be able to manage Capita to rapidly provide civil service pensioners with a scheme that they deserve? And secondly, what reassurance can he give to Royal Mail pensioners that their pension scheme will be managed properly during the transition and afterwards, either in-house or by an external provider?
Minister.
Certainly give that assurance to Royal Mail pensioners, who I know may be worried about the uncertainty, that we will do all we can, as I've said, to ensure continuity of service. I certainly have confidence in my team, and I think the surge of officials into Capita, of around about 140 officials, really has made a significant difference. Equally, as I say that, clearly I will have to consider very carefully what the position is at the end of June 2026 and how important that team remaining in place, whatever length of time, is to the level of service. That's something I've obviously got to consider in due course.
Rachel Hopkins.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I should declare that I have preserved benefits in the CSPS and I'm a member of the PCS trade union. I thank the Minister for his decisive action in terminating the contract for the Royal Mail pension and the ongoing work he is doing with regards to the civil service pension. But he has flagged that there are hard-working public servants who've given their service to the state for many years, who are then subsequently failed when they look to retire to get their pension benefits. And I hope that he will really hold Capita's feet to the fire. Many of us will be keeping our eyes on the Minister as he does so. One point I'd like to ask his view on is whether he will prioritise those who are entitled to bereavement payments under the death in service part of the CSPS, as this is a very, very difficult time and they may not have actually been employed. They are the dependents and sometimes children who are entitled to these payments. Thank you.
Yes, I absolutely agree with her on the importance of bereavement payments, because this is when people are at such a vulnerable time of their lives. And I think the House should be fully aware that I will hold Capita robustly to account on the different contracts I have. I'm sure that the House will also appreciate that I've inherited, in the case of the Civil Service Pension Scheme, a quite long-term contract, but I will continue to make sure that I reserve all contractual rights under the contracts we're overseeing at the Cabinet Office.
Wendy Chamberlain.
you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like other MPs here, I have constituents who have given dedicated years to public service. I've won a prison officer who was stabbed and assaulted in his work, and then had the privilege to be in Camp Zeist looking after the imprisonment of the Lockerbie bomber while they were under trial. I've also got another constituent who is caring for her mother, who is the beneficiary of the pension and has stage 4 palliative cancer. But the Minister has given a very good overview of what is happening, and he talked about the changes that were made in terms of call times. But one of the themes that's coming through for me is actually accessing the portal, and that is having a real erosion of trust. If people cannot even get access to the system, it is a real problem. Could he give us an update on that?
Yes, and again, I think the Honourable Lady speaks very powerfully about the situations, again, very vulnerable situations her constituents find themselves in. And I entirely share her concerns about the portal. And when I was referring to the call times statistic to the Shadow Minister, I am regularly monitoring performance. That was an average I was referring to. Where there are particularly egregious examples of poor service, I say to everyone across the House, please write to me and draw it to my attention. But in terms of the deadline I'm talking about in June 2026, resumption of normal service, that of course includes a functioning portal. And also, of course, there are people who may not have reached the end of their careers but want to, for example, access their updated benefits. They should be able to do so.
Sir John Gillespie.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A few weeks ago, I raised in the Chamber about an issue about my constituent, Andrew Mackay, whose wife, Katie, passed away at the end of September. Both Andrew and Katie both worked in the border force for 40 years. My constituent, Andrew, has been in a numerous contact with Capita with no luck. I have returned to the Minister and I thank the Minister and his team for the engagement with me. Up until now, after all these numerous attempts, after several months, my constituent Andrew is still waiting for this pension. So I know I hear about this prioritising bereavement cases, but in my constituent case, this has not happened. So what would the Minister would say to my constituent and also to Capita to get this case resolved?
Well, first of all, I'd just say to his constituent, Andrew, I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of Katie and thank them for their decades of important service to Border Force. In terms of taking this forward, I think it would probably be sensible for him to give the details of the case in a meeting with the Minister, and we'll be delighted to facilitate that.
Charlie Dewhurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I, like colleagues from across the House, have had constituents appallingly treated by Capita, unable to access that money that they paid in, both veterans and former public servants. So the Minister previously promised a standardised mitigation letter that those individuals could take to lenders so they didn't necessarily have to lend at a commercial rate, and there was some understanding. I appreciate there's £7.2 million in interest-free loans as well. So can I ask the Minister, has he delivered on that promised standardised mitigation letter, and will he go further if required on the £7.2 million interest-free loans?
Minister.
Yes, there's more available in terms of the 7.2 million. In terms of the standardised mitigation letter, I think was raised by a previous member. I will certainly take that away immediately and see what the progress is on that.
Emma Foodie.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for the statement, for the engagement he's had with me and the extensive work that's been done to recover the mess that my CSP and Capita have made of this. Civil servants who dedicated their lives to public service only to be let down in their retirement, and across the House we've all got absolutely appalling examples of the real-world impact this has had. But firstly, can I ask the Minister what steps he has taken to ensure that nothing like this can ever happen again? And secondly, there are individuals who have been unable to retire through no fault of their own, and whether there is any scope for considering them within the compensation arrangements that can be perhaps extended to them.
Minister.
And I'm grateful as well for the engagement with my honourable friend, and I should say to her that we are certainly looking at how we learn the lessons of this going forward. With regard to her second point, I know she's talking about the specific issue of compensation. I know there is a procedure, I think I've discussed it with her previously, a complaints procedure available. But there is also a very broad point here about my determination that we will pursue every contractual lever to ensure that it's not the taxpayer picking up the tab for failure, whether it is, in this particular context, my CSP or indeed Capita.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've got constituents in Boston and Skegness who've suffered because of the ridiculous, appalling failures of Capita under these two contracts. It's not the only failing contracts, Minister, but to what extent have you looked at the bigger Capita financial picture? Because they earned revenue last year of almost £1.5 billion from the government. They've got total contracts worth over £7 billion, and yet they've just disclosed results. They've lost over £150 million. They've got debts of £140 million. The market cap is only £350 million. To what extent is the government preparing for a plan B in case of a financial crisis at Capita, given how much outsourcing work they do for so many British citizens?
Minister.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair to the honourable gentleman, he raises a reasonable point. And I think we are certainly monitoring Capita's general position. I mean, I think it's the case that Capita holds a total of 85 contracts across the public sector, 39 with central government, 46 with the wider public sector. The honourable gentleman can be assured, so in the House, we monitor performance across the whole portfolio. And we consider, obviously, each contract individually. And it is hugely important, as he says as well, when you have providers, that you are looking always at their financial position, because continuity of service is so important for those, in the case of the Civil Service Pension Scheme, who've paid in their own money over decades and deserve that dignity in retirement.
Danny Beales.
Deputy Speaker, I've been contacted by several constituents who've experienced challenges and delays in accessing their pensions via the scheme which Capita has managed, or should I say mismanaged, for some time. That includes Bindu, Duncan and Anne-Ree. Tony, a 40-year-long civil servant, should be looking forward to a well-earned retirement this year, but he's not been able to access the information on his portal. He can't get through on the phone, and on one occasion spent 4 hours trying to speak to an advisor and then gave up. I'm sure the Minister agrees. It's extremely worrying not to be able to plan for your retirement and understand what is ahead of you. Does the Minister agree with me this situation is completely unacceptable? And can the Minister outline what quick action will take place to hold Capita to account, to bring about improvements and ensure my constituents can look forward to their well-earned retirement?
My honourable friend is right. It is totally unacceptable, and that's why I've put in place the recovery plan. That is why the Accountant Office withholds milestone payments. I would be very grateful, though, the point he made about a 4-hour wait. I'd be very grateful if, with his constituents' permission, he could give me the detail and the date of that, because I'd like to take that up.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm delighted to hear the Minister today and the determination with which he intends to approach this and the messages he's sending to Capita, because, like many others, I have a mailbox full of civil service pensioners unable to access their funds, many of them in hardship. One woman at the moment fears she may lose her home simply because she can't get a response from Capita. I have asked for a meeting with them. So I wonder if the Minister is aware of any plans or has asked Capita to prioritise those in severe hardship, because there seems to be no attempt on their behalf to do that.
Minister.
Certainly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the surge team of officials that has gone into Capita of around 140 are certainly looking at prioritising in the most urgent and vulnerable cases. With her specific case, though, I'd be very grateful if she could write directly to me about it, and I will certainly look at it.
Rachel Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I welcome the statement from the Minister. The way that Capita have treated my constituents, like Jill, who contacted my office, and many others who've dedicated their lives to public service, is nothing short of shameful. This is yet another example of how this government is sorting out the mess that was created by the last government. Can the Minister update the House on the number of hardship loans that have been issued by the government and the number of civil service pension scheme members who've already received the maximum amount, and how the government will continue to help them going forward?
Minister.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and she's absolutely right about this contract that we inherited. So, in terms of the hardship loans, we've already provided over £7.2 million in interest-free transitional support loans to more than 1,300 members, but that is in no sense a cap. We continue to proactively drive uptake, and I'd encourage all members across the House to do the same.
Adam Dance.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement today. Teresa and Alistair cannot get information or statements on their pension, while Nicola keeps seeing payments delayed, damaging her finances. Can the Minister reassure my constituents that no civil servant will be left without timely pension payments, and tell them how the government will restore the confidence of civil servants that the pensions they earn are secure and will be managed fairly?
Minister.
And that exactly the kind of situations that the Honourable Gentleman is talking about that his constituents have faced is why the dedicated recovery team was put in place. I will be holding now Capita to account for the timetable in this recovery plan of service by the end of June of this year. And in terms of the cases he's raised, I would be very interested if he were able to just write me the details and the dates of exactly when that happened.
Annalise Midgley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to welcome the Minister's statement today, especially on the news of the termination of the Royal Mail Pension Scheme contract to Capita. But as he knows, Capita's management of the civil service pension scheme has been an absolute shambles, and I've got constituents who can't meet their mortgage payments, who are having to defer their retirements and who are not receiving the compensation that they deserve. It's one in a very long list of failures, as my right honourable friends from Hayes and Harlington outlined. So can the Minister explain why we keep awarding Capita contracts, how it represents value for money for the taxpayer, and how we are meeting our manifesto commitment of the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation?
Minister.
We are very committed to that manifesto commitment and delivering it, and the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, I know, will be sending out more about that in due course following his speech earlier in the year, but also to say to my honourable friend, she is absolutely right about the poor performance under this contract. And obviously I've taken the decision to terminate the Royal Mail statutory pension scheme, and she can be, and members across the House can be assured, that under this contract we will robustly be holding Capita to account, because as my honourable friend rightly says, what has happened to people where they have missed mortgage payments or other things have happened to them through no fault of their own is completely unacceptable.
Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Capita fail time and time again, yet they're constantly awarded more contracts. Sally, one of my constituents, have been told multiple times that her lump sum payment was coming or had already been paid, and it hadn't. But she and other civil servants would have been worried to hear in March of this year that Capita were to be awarded a £700 million contract for the civil service payroll. Is this not just another example that when Capita fail, the government award them yet more of our money?
Minister.
Look, each individual contract, and it's absolutely essential that I make this point, has to be considered on its own merits. That's exactly what I've been doing. With regard to other government departments in terms of procurement, the one thing I'm certainly doing is ensuring that from the Cabinet Office we do share the lessons learnt from this recent transition of the civil service pension scheme, and I will be ensuring that those lessons are certainly made available right across government.
Trina Murray.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Minister for not only the statement but for also the engagement he's had with us over the last 6 months. And I say that because my constituent applied for her pension quote with my CSP back in August and finally got the quotation last week. It is still a considerable distance between her actually getting her money in her bank account. What I'd actually like to ask is that the Minister consider ensuring that the recovery team is in place until all of those people that have been caught up in this backlog actually have money in their banks.
Minister.
Yes, I agree. And say to my honourable friend and say to the House more generally, I will clearly have to make a judgment. I do not intend withdrawing a team if it is going to result in a deterioration in service. So I will obviously make that judgment very, very carefully. That said, though, I've been very clear about that deadline of June 2026 for the restoration of the proper contractual service under this contract, and I will be holding Capita to it.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for his answers today to the statement, and no one doubts his commitment to try and find the solutions and move it forward. The Minister's statement outlines that there are some 1,500 complaints from MPs about their constituents' pension that have been withheld. A number of those complaints are mine. Whilst the Minister highlights the availability of an interest-free loan for people awaiting their pensions, if the amount is £5,000, unless there are exceptional circumstances. For those waiting 16 months for their pensions who are more than £5,000 behind in their mortgage, will the Minister not uplift the interest-free loans and make the payments immediately available to those in this very, very precarious scenario? Thank you.
Minister.
On that final point, if you could just write to me precisely with what that situation is, I'm more than happy to look at it. But could I just say to members across the House, that performance on MP correspondence is appalling. I am not willing to tolerate it. People across this House are speaking for their constituents right across the House who are in very vulnerable situations. I've given very clear instructions about this being dealt with, and in my view it has to be out of respect for this House and the people who work here.
Amanda Martin.
Madam Deputy Speaker, before I ask the Minister a question, I'd just like to welcome back Andy, who gives us a great deal of service in this chamber, so it's good to see you back. Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the action this government has taken and the Minister's updating statement today, and I want to thank him for his engagement with me over the past 6 months. It is clear Capita has shamefully failed many Ports of North civil servants. Madam Deputy Speaker, civil servants like Kirsty still waiting for ill health compensation, Christine waiting months for her widow's pension payments, Louise, who submitted request forms and who since November has heard nothing, and Madam Deputy Speaker, Anne, who after 48 years of public service and sadly following the death of her husband has been unable to get any clarity on her pension forecast. Madam Deputy Speaker, these are not numbers on a spreadsheet, but real people and real lives. And I want to ask on behalf of these women, the Minister, when the Civil Service Pension Scheme will finally be stabilised.
Minister.
I also welcome back Andy, and I think he's gone past, but welcome him back and thank him for his service. But I say to my honourable friend, and indeed her four constituents, what I've said in the recovery plan and what is part of the recovery plan is for the contractual level of service to be back by June of this year. If it is not delivered, then of course I reserve all rights under this contract with Capita.
Final question on this statement, Chris Binns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I join my honourable friend from Portsmouth welcoming Andy back to the Speaker's office. He's shoulder to cry on after the Harlow Town results that I've had recently. And can I thank the Paymaster General for his statement today, which is hugely important to residents of Harlow who have worked tirelessly over the years in the postal service and indeed the civil service and indeed as veterans. And I've seen in one of my previous roles working for a homeless charity the devastating effect late pension payments can have on people's lives, and we shouldn't forget the human impact of these issues. And I would also comment on join my right honourable friend from Sheffield South East and his recognising the issues with the teachers' pension issues. I've got a constituent of mine, Carol, who constantly comes to me to speak to me about the issues she's having with her teacher pension. I'd really recommend he looks at that as well. But in terms of, turning it to a question, Madam Deputy Speaker, can I ask the Paymaster General what he will do to ensure that we get these pensions right, that we hold Capita account, or considering insourcing these pensions if necessary, to show that this Labour government is on the side of those hard-working pensioners?
Minister.
We're absolutely on their side, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I think the important thing here in the immediate term is obviously the stabilisation of the service. That is why we'll be holding Capita robustly to account on the recovery plan. I'm afraid to say that, my honourable friend, I can't help him with the results of Harlow Town.
And that concludes the statement.
Right, okay, while they're changing over, I'm going to end that there, okay, for today. Oh, he changed the icon over, god damn it. It's been a long old day. Right, yeah, so, thank you very much everyone for watching. It's been interesting. And don't forget, we will be back next week. If there's anything that comes up in between, keep an eye on the channel, turn your bell notifications on, then you'll be alerted if I'm live, whether anything happens in America or in the Middle East or in the UK. Anything happens at all and I can live stream it, I will. Don't forget to smash that like button. Keep an eye out for the shorts as well. We'll do a few shorts from the main stream, but thank you everyone for watching. It is much appreciated. And we'll catch you soon. Don't forget to please make sure you're subscribed. And also, just gonna put it out there as well. There's rumours on social media about the march on May the 16th in London has been cancelled. It has not been cancelled. It is still going ahead. It's a load of rubbish. There's people out there just spreading fucking rubbish out there, okay? Right, so thank you everyone. Take care. Have a great week, rest of the week, and we'll catch you all soon.